welcome back to HPP, the podcast that talks with tomorrow's hoop stars. I'm Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. Today we have a full house. We have our two youngsters on the staff, Josh Tischler, Joey Bardak, and we have the Bay Area bomber, Drew Barton, bringing in the veteran leadership. So Drew, we're recording the show much later than we planned. Not all your fault, of course.
It can be my fault. It's entirely okay.
No, it's not all your fault. But it sounds like you have an interesting story that happened today. So,
today was a disaster. It's raining really bad here in the Bay. Like it's coming down pretty bad, and so our women's locker room ceiling basically sprung a massive leak.
Oh my God.
I was helping kind of damage control that while the women's basketball team was getting ready. They were going through film. They've got a game tomorrow, so they were doing film, and I was in the background trying to move trash cans and get facilities figured out. So that wasn't fun. And then the place I worked at before, Menlo, if any returning viewers know, our women's team played them last week. They have no idea how to run stats, so they completely bungled the stats. There have been no stats for that game for 5 days. They finally sent me this random box score that was obviously wrong. There was 20 dead ball rebounds. There were points assessed to people who didn't play, registered. So I had to go in and I had to basically, before I could leave work, I had to sit there with one laptop with the game film on and the other laptop statting, and I had to restat the game. And basically told them, look, I did it for you. You have two options. You can say screw it and do it yourself, or you can take these stats and roll with them. So it looks like they're going to just take the stats that I gave them. Take my word for it that they're right. So wow. Not the most fun day, but that's working in sports, gentlemen.
Do you have access during basketball games for stat broadcast?
Like the live stat, running the live stats? Yeah. All the live stats that come through, if you tune into the live stats in a Sonoma game, that comes through me.
Right.
So everything that gets inputted, everything that gets sent to the NCAA, I basically am in charge of all of that.
So when we were at the Jersey Jam, that stat broadcast, for whatever reason, stopped getting updated. It would run for 5 minutes and it would stop. And it never updated for the final 5 minutes of the game. So nobody was, even Temple's coach, Adam Fisher, even commented about, I comment on the stats, but we don't have any. They never gave us a printout.
The quickest way to piss off your coach, the quickest way I have learned, there's two. Accidentally record or film something at practice for social media that you weren't supposed to and post it by accident, a set or something like that. And then two, don't give them stats during a game. Oh man, that is the number one way. So
even at D2 East Stroudsburg, where I graduated from, they have the stats boom, in the coach's hand right as halftime ends.
I probably burned through damn near half a ream of paper, which is 250 pages, give or take, every game.
Wow.
That's a little bit extreme, but if there's a double header, I'll print every time out. I'm printing upwards of 6 to 8 sheets of stats for coaches, assistant coaches, broadcasters if they want a hard copy. Confirming, using them to confirm with the book to make sure the fouls are matched up properly and everything. So yeah, it's fun though. I mean, look, it's basketball. It's fun. I mean, I'm in charge of all of it, so it's kind of cool. The software is actually pretty fun to use because I basically get to make my own shot chart and keep track of everything. So it's actually a really cool thing. The software itself is actually kind of fun to use if you're a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Because you're literally you're creating a shot chart, which is fun. But then you mess it up and you have a coach who wants to tear your head off while your locker room's flooding and all that stuff's happening. So good day though. Good day.
All righty. All right. So Josh, Joey, how are you guys doing?
I'm not doing too bad. Had finishing up exams. Just finished my last one at 8:30 p.m.
Are these midterms?
Terms. So finish up midterms and then I'm heading home back to New York.
Oh, no way.
For Thanksgiving break. Yeah. So excited to be back home.
When do you leave for home?
Tomorrow night. Flying back.
Wow.
A little layover in Detroit. So first time in Detroit. And hopefully last. And and then back home in New York. So excited to be home.
And you're in Queens, so I'll be in Manhattan on Thursday or Friday. So if you maybe if I have some time, I'll send you a text, and if you want to make the trip,
Yeah, man.
which I doubt you will, but
It'll be hard. I mean, yeah, because
yeah, I know. It's like any borough,
but
getting from one borough to the next is a
oh my
pain in the
God, it's
ass.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's awful. Drive into the city. It's garbage.
Joey, when's your break?
My break starts Wednesday, but I'm flying home Monday night.
Okay, and where's home?
Atlanta.
I did not know that.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't have a southern, I guess Atlanta though, I guess that's more that they don't really have the rural accent, do they?
Yeah, it's more urban. I wish I had a southern accent. That would be a lot more fun, but I don't.
You do talk slowly like a southern boy, but you don't have the twang. All right. Well, had no idea. Interesting. All right, so let's get going. This will be our first official college hoops notebook of the college basketball season for 24-25. So we're going to start off with some specific observations because and I'll start with you, Joey. Because you each go to a school that's big basketball power, and Drew, of course, he loves his Zags, and Josh loves his Johnny. So we're gonna run, and I'm going to talk about some of the games that I recently attended in person. So Joey, we'll start with you. Ohio State just dropped their first game, right? That was to somebody.
Lost to A&M on the road.
Right, that was just the other night, and I missed that game. I didn't get a chance to see it. So, I did see the victory over Texas. And what are your takeaways of the team so far as a whole?
It's been a mixed bag so far. So we had that first game against Texas. We looked really good. It was just all the pieces were kind of coming together. And I think that's kind of what happens is we don't really have a superstar. We just have a lot of players that are just going to get you, 10 points or so a night. Michi struggled a little bit, but we'd bring in John Mobley. He'd hit a few threes. Devin Royal's been shooting the ball really well off the bench. Micah Parrish has been solid. It's just been everyone picking up the slack. So it looked really good against Texas. And then A&M, it was just, I think when you play that brand of basketball there's the pro and the con. On one hand, when all the guys are working together, it's great. But also when you need someone to step up and Michi's still shooting 2 of 7, then it doesn't really work as well. So I think if Michi can start being more efficient, if Bruce Thornton can pick up the pace, because I think that's been our biggest issue is just getting that big scoring boost when we need.
I was really, I also watched the first half of the Youngstown game. That really got out of control. But Youngstown actually has a legit 7-foot shot blocker, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he's a legit guy. Like he's going to play pro ball somewhere. And Bradshaw really had a nice game, and you could see in spurts from Sean Smith, right? Right?
Sean Stewart,
right? You can see glimpses from him. It's kind of like Carr from Michigan State. He comes. He'll give you this 5 minutes of wow time, and then either disappears, or in the case of Carr's case, Izzo waits till he has a spectacular dunk and the whole stadium's buzzing, and then Izzo pulls him. It's like Carr can't win for losing at Michigan State. So he's one of those guys I think Izzo doesn't play enough. But anyway, I really was happy to see how Bradshaw played in that Youngstown game, but that's Youngstown. So what do you make of the big guys? Has Bradshaw been the more impressive one so far?
So I think Bradshaw has been really solid defensively. He's done about what we expected from him. He hasn't reached maybe the superstar status that people expected last year, but he's grabbing rebounds, he's getting blocks, he's had some electric dunks to get the crowd going. What I was really pleasantly surprised by in the Youngstown game, at least, I know it's Youngstown, but I remember we were talking earlier about what Ohio State was going to do with the backup big position. and they would run they would run some sets with Bradshaw on the bench, and they would do like Stewart and Royal at the front court. And they lose a lot of size, but what they lose in size, they really gain in mobility and athleticism. And those guys have hops, those guys are quick, and they were able to get to those bigs. So granted, that was Youngstown, and the wheels kind of fell off against A&M, but that was a road game. We had the big win against Texas. Like I haven't like fully lost hope yet, but I think there's still a lot to be seen.
Right. All right, Joey. So we'll move on to Josh. And Josh, what do you? Let's first talk about IU. I'm really impressed with this team. And if I had to pick over, in our Big Ten preview, I had Michigan State first, IU second. I definitely would have IU ahead of Michigan State.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I would have Michigan State second at this point, but I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing out of IU.
I think this is, it's been 3 games, and I've gone every single one of the games so far. And each game that I've been seeing from this team, it's a brand new team, bunch of transfers. Miles Rice, Umar Ballo, Kanan Carlisle, Luke Goody. It's he's a bunch of new guys coming into a whole new system for Coach Woodson. And at the start of each game that I've been seeing, is they have a slow start into them, but as the game gets going, the second half keeps rolling, this team can really defend. That's the big thing that I'm seeing. Kanan Carlisle, I'm a huge fan of him. He's a great defender. He plays from the start to finish. Once he gets offensively going, I think this team could be really just like a really great team. Mackenzie Mbako, I think he's the best player on the team.
He's in fuego. He's
on fire, man.
First round draft pick.
I agree. I think he has a chance of being player of the year for the Big Ten, the way he's shooting. Miles Rice, last game they played against South Carolina, which is, it's a great game. It's SEC team. They have a future first rounder on their team as well. And finally, you're seeing, Umar Ballo was kind of, starting out a little slow offensively, wasn't rebounding the ball really well. But I thought his last game that he had was a great game. I think he had 13 rebounds for them, was doing really well on the defensive end. And that's what you kind of need from Umar Ballo. At times that I'm seeing, they're kind of playing kind of like a low post game for him. But I'm like thinking to myself, like, I've never seen them actually play like that in Arizona or Gonzaga. They never took him as like a low post guy. He's more like, he's getting rebounds, an alley-oop type of guy, putbacks. That's what they kind of have to utilize him for. And I think the main guy that I'm really loving also is Miles Rice. I think this man could be a top 10 point guard in the country. I think his last game was phenomenal. I think he had like 23 points, a couple assists, a couple rebounds, and that's what you're going to need for Woody and his team. A true point guard, and this team can really do something special, I believe. And the main concern is the shooting. Last game they shot the ball really well, 3-ball. They kept shooting, and that's like, from all my years of watching IU,
are you counting Carlisle's? Are you counting Carlisle's alley oops?
I went to the game. I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, that's a terrible pass, and it goes right. I'm like, oh my god! And he's sitting there scratching his head. It was awesome.
The look on his face. The look on his face. He didn't know what to think. For those who weren't watching the game, Keenan Carlisle went to alley oop. I'm not sure who it was. Who was it?
I think it was to Mbako.
Right.
I think it was too.
And in the ball, it was inside half court, but close, And he threw it up at an alley oop, and it just went in for a swish.
Yeah, right in. Everyone's like, oh my god. But I mean, I think this team is honestly, the starting 5. It's special. Hopefully, I think Trey Galloway coming off the bench now. He's kind of got a more relaxed role compared to last year. He was starting for this team, doing a lot, and like, he's not really that type of guy that kind of give you, 20 a game, couple of assists, and like you need him on the bench, and like.
But he's passing well. He's passing.
Yeah, I think his IQ has always been high. I think he's always been one of the smartest players in the courts for sure. And he's just got to take his time out there. I think Luke Goody, he's kind of been struggling right now, but as the games go on, he'll find his shooting, and the bench got to get more production for sure. But I'm really loving what I'm seeing from the starting 5 so far.
Right. And the front court, Renault hit a 3 in that game against South
Hey, he's
Carolina.
expanding his game. Yeah.
And his stroke didn't look bad at all. If he could continue to do that, the versatility they can have with the front court, of being able to use those guys in different spots in different ways, should be helpful.
And also that was also like my concern coming into the season, because Reneau's like he clogs the paint a lot. And
right.
he's a low post guy. So, you got him and Ballo kind of going in and out, and it's like, you're hoping Reneau can maybe expand his game a little bit to out of the arc. So hopefully, see a little bit more shooting out of him, and his team could be special for sure.
All right. How about those Johnnies?
How about those Johnnies?
They just thumped New Mexico.
Good team too. I think they win the Mountain West, New Mexico. I think the Lobos will be good.
Yeah. We picked them
had them
unanimously.
right up there. I think we had them to win it, right, Rich? It was
all of it. All three of us picked New Mexico to win the conference. So
dent.
Of course, they got the big.
And Nelly Joseph, he's great too. That's a Patino guy as well.
Yeah.
So.
But that was their first real test of the season. And now they have another one coming up against Baylor. And that's going to be in the Bahamas.
The Bahamas, yeah.
So what do you make about the Johnnies? Now, this was a team I said in our Big East preview that I thought could. I went down to the wire before I picked Connecticut to win the conference. I really considered putting St. John's as the winner. And when I went to the Big East Media Day, I was shocked to see them pick, 5th?
Yeah, it was. I think Xavier will be good. They had Mark over them, and I think Creighton as well.
Yeah.
And
they had them 5th. They had them.
Yeah,
5th.
they had them 5th.
Which I think they're better than Xavier. I think. Marquette's looking pretty good, so that's a tough one.
It really depends on one guy for them, though. I mean, Cam Jones is he's really doing a lot for them too. That's the thing.
Right.
I don't know if that's sustainable for that team.
Right, but I think the Big East, they certainly could win it. But what are your thoughts on the team?
So I've been going to St. John's games ever since maybe I was 7 or 8. My dad would take me to a bunch of these games, and I'd say from the time that I've gone to these games until now, this is probably the biggest hype I've seen around this Johnny's team. I think it starts from the transfers that they got. I think, preseason All-American, Kadari Richmond, I think that dude does everything for them. He's a great facilitator. The shooting is he's very questionable on the shooting end, but, great rebounder, really good defender. I think RJ Lewis has been phenomenal so far. I think he's really taken that jump from, last season he had a couple injuries, his shin splints, and he's fully healthy, a full season in. He's looking really good. Simeon Wilcher, he breakout sophomore year, and it's a little odd. I've been the past years I've been watching Patino. He kind of changes around his lineups, and people question his choices of not sticking to a specific lineup. But I very much like the idea of switching around, based off matchups, and even just adding guys that wouldn't really get so much playing time into that rotation, because I think it's important down the line that these guys get valuable minutes for this team so that they can be prepared for the tournament and, March Madness and all that. I think Devion Smith has been phenomenal, great passer. I think he can be really great for them. They got a triple head right there, Simeon, Kadari, and Devion Smith. But I think the real X factor, if this team really wants to be, continue to be a top 20 team, it's Zuby Ejiofor, their center. I think he's got to really stay being a double-double guy all night. And if he's having an off night, it's going to be hard for this team to compete. It's rebounding. That's the big thing for them. I think they're a great defensive team. They added North Texas transfer Aaron Scott. I think he's a great defender. I think he's one of the best defenders in the Big East.
Yep.
He looked amazing out there. He could be a real 3-and-D guy for the St. John's squad. And they're a deep team. They got Brady Dunlap coming off the bench. He's a great shooter. Who else? They've got
They have 2 5-stars at center that they're hardly playing. And
Ruben Prey,
the
Portuguese guy.
Right.
He's had some flashes. He looks pretty solid.
He was ranked right up there with Mara from UCLA when they both came in together as European, rated as he was rated as highly as Mara, pretty much.
Right. And he's shown good flashes as well. It's all, I'm really loving Patino's scheme right now. It's hard ball, pressing as soon as the ball comes in. in the front court. And it's gonna be hard to play this team 40 minutes. I'm gonna say they're gonna always continue to be hard. They're gonna defend the ball really well, and this is real Big East hoops right here. Real hard knock basketball, and I'm pretty excited to see this game tomorrow against Baylor. I think it's gonna be a really good game.
Right. Drew, how about your Zags? They're looking pretty good. I saw at least one power rankings have them number one, but we'll talk about those power rankings some more. I have some
Sure.
major gripes with them, but not with Gonzaga being number one.
I got the game on my other laptop over here. They're up by like 20 on Long Beach State. But yeah, I mean, I think legitimately, in my opinion, I don't think they're clear. I don't think any team has separated themselves as the best team in the country. It's too early. We haven't seen that from anybody. But I think I would put them at number one solely based on the fact that they've actually played a schedule. I think UConn's going to be a great team. I think Alex Caravan's going to be an All-American. They've played 4 teams in a row that are all 330 or lower on the KenPom ranking. It doesn't count for anything.
Right.
Shout out to Aiden Mahaney hate though. He looks horrible. But no, I think right now as it stands, they should be number one. I have no problem with them at 3. Kansas does have a signature big win over UNC, but I mean, this team is. What more do you want from this team on the offensive side of the ball? Battle. I know that Jake and I went back and forth, both excited about the prospects of him working there, but question marks, especially from that last kind of time at Temple, and then Arkansas was a slow start, and then he ended on a scorcher. I mean, it looks like he's found a match made in heaven. Seems like he really likes being there. I mean, if you had told me that a team up until I believe the San Diego State game to that point, Ike had been bad. Ben Gregg had been bad, at least by their standards, that they'd be 4-0 with a 40-point win over Baylor, that they'd go to the Viejas Center and win. Now, I know San Diego State isn't the San Diego State that we've seen the last 2-3 years. I know they had some injuries, but going into that game, that's still a good defensive team. It's still a very tough place to play. I mean, the way the basketball they're playing on the offensive side hasn't missed a beat. You guys are going to find out very quickly. I'm a huge Nembhard in general stan. I love the family. Andrew was my favorite point guard. I thought he was the best point guard in the nation his last year there. And I think Ryan is the best point guard. Now, I do think in terms of go get a bucket, yeah, I'd probably take Sears. In terms of versatility, do a little bit of everything. A guy like Cam Jones comes to mind. But if I'm talking about someone who's going to run my offense, Nembhard is the guy for me. I'm taking him hands down. Of course, there's some bias there, but I think when you have 40 assists to – I think, 5 turnovers, and you've played the schedule that they've played, that speaks for itself. The big thing for me on this team is that I'm actively seeing steps from Dusty Stromer and Braden Huff. The big questions last year with those two guys where you had a true freshman and a redshirt freshman, they were not up to the challenge night in and night out. That Steele Venner's injury they couldn't replace it. They got hot down the stretch, but it wasn't enough. We're talking about Braden Huff offensively being as good as Ike. He's still not the same physical presence. He's more of a finesse big, but offensively, I think he's actually better. He's a more smooth 3-point shooter. He's a better free throw shooter. He has a lot more variety of moves on the block, whereas Ike overpowers you. Huff's going to hit you with more Drew Timmy-esque followaways, spins, reverse pivots. And then I love Dusty Stromer. I love the kid. He totally just screams Gonzaga legend. I think by his senior year, he's going to have a full beard and like long hair and a headband. He's going to look like a weird, crazy guy, but he's going to be killing people. He's probably the best pure shooter on the team in terms of just the mechanics of the jump shot. He's shooting, I think, 50% coming into tonight's game from 3. The volume's not super high given the, how deep they are. He's not playing a bunch of minutes, but he's such a competitor. He's a willing defender. And that's what's going to boil down to. Can the bench continue to be arguably the best bench in the nation? I think they can. I think they will be in that running all year long. And then the next thing is, can they defend? They defended very well against Baylor. They defended very well against San Diego State. Long Beach State, UMass Lowell, I don't think they're massive pushovers, but, I mean, we're not comparing those teams. Arizona State game gave me some pause. While they're not the most polished offensive team, they are athletic, they're big, they're long. They've got 3 top 50 recruits with Quintense at the post. That gave them some issues. They have to be able to defend at a high level, and this has been the argument with Gonzaga basically since they've been on the national stage. We know they can get to 80. We know if they really hit, they can get to 90. They have to stop people from matching those point totals because you can't rely on 3 balls falling every night. You're not going to be home every game. Injuries happen. Things go wrong. So if they can defend at, a top 30 level just be solid. I'm not asking them to be Houston or St. Mary's or San Diego State. This team has all the makings to make a deep run. I've got my pillars of March, and they check all of those boxes. The defense is the last one that I really need to see. And we're going to find out about this team really, really soon. They've played a great schedule, and it only gets better. Kentucky, UConn, they're probably going to get Indiana. They're probably going to get Arizona. I mean, we're talking about a schedule where they might have 5 or 6 top 10 teams in their back pocket on their resume when it's all said and done. So super pumped, super excited, and bear with me, boys. It's going to be a long season. Every time they win, I'm in a great mood, and when they lose, I'm inconsolable. So Rich will tell you, I'm still not over the WCC awards from last year.
Yeah, we could have had a separate show on that issue. I brought it up to Drew on the show, and I think we were talking about it 40 minutes later.
Hey man, I'm just saying, robbery is robbery.
But one thing I'll say about Battle is, for the first time in his career, he's playing with a really, really good point guard. And he's also doesn't have to do it every time down the court. At Temple, he was really their only main offensive threat. At Arkansas, he shouldn't have been, but it was, he really picked it up when Tremont Mark went down. But Arkansas really, beside Battle and Mark, were really a mess last year.
I saw him turn a leaf, and I made this joke to my buddy who went to Gonzaga, and we were watching the game together. And he threw a post entry pass to Ike, and I was like, "Oh my god, he threw the ball into the post, and he's not expecting it right back." I'm like, "This is a new man. This is a changed man. He's actually going to let a post player post up and feed the post, and not, look. He's going to take the step back and tested three. He's going to drive to the rim and drive, which you live with. But I actually saw him playing basketball, like actively playing in a team system, and I'm like, he's going to blitz a couple poor WCC teams for 30, 35. It's going to happen. The Pacific Tigers are going to trot out there and think everything's going to be sweet, and then he's going to drop 30 on them, and it's going to get ugly really quick. So,
yeah. All right. So the 3 games that I've attended since our last show, I went to a doubleheader, which was the Jersey Jam, and that was Temple versus Monmouth and Princeton versus Duquesne. And I'll talk about that first. Temple blew out Monmouth, and Jamal Mashburn went crazy. He could have had 40 in that game. He just kind of took it easy. I think he had low 20s and finished with 25. I mean, he just really didn't, shoot the ball much. Now, we have to keep in mind, Temple doesn't even have their point guard, Lynn Greer. So this team will get better, but Temple did just drop their first game to somebody who's so, and I'll tell you in one sec. They dropped to Boston. Now that's a surprise, because I figured Boston College, basement of the ACC, they really don't return much. They really don't have much. So I was really surprised. Now it was close. It was a 3-point loss at BC. But yeah, I don't know if Temple was looking ahead to the Florida State game, though they had a week off, so I doubt that. I don't really know what went wrong, because I didn't see that game. Mashburn still had 23, and he's like top 10 scorer in the country this year. But the one thing I see with Temple right now is I don't trust their outside shooting. They don't really. And I think that right now they're just relying way too much on Mashburn. And on the plus side, I will say Mashburn, who's always been known as a mid-range master, is now really hitting from 3. I don't know what his stats are today, but he's really expanded his game. At one point, he was hitting 75% of his threes. So this Temple team is a team that I thought was going to be one of the 2 teams to get a bid from the American this year to get in the NCAA tournament. I'm not, even though they dominated Monmouth, that loss to BC really, it's not a game they should lose, if they're going to go to the NCAA tournament. So I'm still haven't quite made up my mind of what Temple has, but they do seem to be missing like one other major scorer to complement Mashburn. And Lynn Greer is really known. He's kind of like a Ryan Nebhard. Not really a scorer, really more of a distributor. So yeah. All right. So then the second game, Princeton and Duquesne, was a slugfest. I've never seen such a physical game in my life. Up person, because like I was, for the first half, I was standing on the court. I was right on the baseline, and so I could just see these guys just pounding into each other. So I'm sure there's plenty of other physical games, but to be up that close and just hear people going, oh, in pain, and their bodies were flying all over. But it was ugly. It was ugly. It looked more like a football game than a basketball game. Princeton came and trailed 75% of that game, but they got hot toward the end. Cade Pierce finally came alive. Zaven Lee, had like almost double digits in rebounds and assists, but really had an off shooting night. But Cade Pierce came through for Princeton. But here's what I'm going to say about Princeton. Even though we thought this team had a chance to be better maybe than last year's version, that was maybe even on the fringe of being an at-large team, because they only have like 3 losses going into Ivy Madness. I'm really not. I mean, let's review their schedule so far. They only beat Iona by 1, down year for Iona. They beat Duquesne by 7, but they were trailing, almost all game. They beat Northeastern, who's actually pretty good. Don't count Northeastern out this year, but they only beat them by 3. Then they played Loyola Chicago on Friday night when I was at Rutgers, and they lost by 5 at home. So now Loyola Chicago is another bubble team right now. They're undefeated, and they're a good team. And they're in the A10. So, yeah, and that's not a horrible loss, but still, at home, if you want to have the type of resume that they might even consider you as an at-large, you got to win those games. And then they just beat Merrimack by only 11. So I'm a little concerned about this team. And their next game is no gimme against Wright State. I mean, Wright State has 2 guys that could put up 20, 25 a night on you, including Horizon preseason player of the year, Brandon Noel. So, yeah, I don't know what Princeton's a little sluggish right now, but we shall see. Now, the big game. I was at Rutgers for Ace Bailey's first official college game. This kid is tall. This kid is lean. This kid is athletic. This kid can handle the ball. He didn't do a ton of shot creation, but what was amazing is, as a reporter, you're not supposed to cheer. And I'm sitting in the press box, and I couldn't help it. I didn't even think about it. First play of the game, he sinks a 3. His first shot is a 3, and the whole stadium just erupted, including me. And I'm like, whoop. But I was just, it was just, what a great way to start your career. But he played a lot of minutes. He was obviously winded, and he didn't show up at the press conference afterwards because of cramping. This guy who hadn't been practicing due to injury, so it's not surprising to see him be winded. But his stat line on the night was 5 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from deep, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, which is excellent. 6 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, no assists though, and 2 turnovers. So, also we saw a lot of Dylan Harper in the game. Now, keep in mind, they are playing Monmouth. And here's the weird thing. They had like a 14 to maybe 20 point lead, the whole game. And then Monmouth, a kid named Abdi Bashir, who had been playing well the whole game, but he just went nuts. And I swear to God, I'd say with 8 minutes or maybe 6 minutes to go, they had pulled within maybe 9 or 11. And Abdi Bashir at that point was 8 of 12 from 3. He put up 38 points on Rutgers. This kid is 6'7". He's a string bean. He's only a sophomore. Very soft spoken. I spoke to him after the game, and we're going to get him on the show soon. This kid definitely has pro potential. In fact, his coach said after the game, he said, well, Abdi had one of the greatest games I've ever seen a player have, and it was nice having him this year. He basically
Going straight to the draft.
No, not the draft. I think he meant transferring. This kid's not ready for the draft.
Oh.
No, I mean this kid. I mean, if he weighs 170 pounds at 6'7", I'd be. He's skinny. But he really so and Rutgers didn't do anything to adjust. Now he did finish the game something like, I don't know, 10 of 17, so he was hitting at a 75% clip. But he stole the show. He stole the show from Harper and then Bailey. And so far, Rutgers hasn't really played anybody. Obviously, that was Bailey's first game, so it was a nice outing for him. Harper was good, but again, playing Monmouth, a team that hasn't won a game yet this year, that I just saw the week before get destroyed by Temple. I'd like this. I want to see Harper shoot better. I want to see Harper pull up. One of the things you'll notice in a lot of these mismatch games that you're seeing this time of year, when a Rutgers plays a Merrimack, and maybe not so much Rutgers because that's not their strength, but we've even seen it with Colorado, a team that we predicted was going to be near the basement in the Big 12. But they have that huge JUCO guy who's like 7 foot, 300 pounds. He's like a tall Eddie Lampkin. And he's like kicking ass right now because they're playing all these small schools, and all they do is dump the ball into this 7-footer, and these smaller schools don't have anybody can come close to matching up with a 7 foot, 300-pound guy. And so, that guy scored 17 points a night. Is that going to hold up? No way. But you're seeing a lot of teams. We saw Illinois do it the other night in a game they had that was a mismatch. And all they did was go to a Visits. It was a Visits. So yeah, and the other thing you're going to see is guards that like to drive are going to have their way with people, and that's what Dylan Harper's getting away with right now. He's having his way. He's shooting almost 58% from the field, mostly off drives, but he's only shooting 31% from three. He's also only shooting 70% from the free throw line. So I want to see more shooting from Harper. I want to see the pull-up game too. I want to see, don't force it in the inside. If you're going against a 7-foot shot blocker, don't go in there and get it put back in your face. Pull up before you even get close from 12 feet away and knock it down. That's what pros do. So yeah, I'm not saying that I'm down on either of these guys. I'm just saying they're still in my top 5. And, but I think, the number 1 draft pick, and you guys can comment on this. I just think, guys like Trey Johnson and, I'm going to say Igor, but they don't say Igor, they say Agor. So Agor, Demin from BYU, I think he's put himself in that conversation, and I think a few other guys could put themselves in the conversation. Certainly to be a top 5 pick to maybe even the number 1 overall pick. Not just taking anything away from Cooper Flagg, he's playing great, but I just don't think it's a lock right now for him to be the number 1 pick. Anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, I would agree that Cooper Flagg is not like the unanimous number 1. I think there's been a lot of great freshmen. I really love Demin. I think he's looked really solid for BYU. That team looks really good. I think Trey Johnson has put himself up there. Ace Bailey looks really good as well. I think it's not unanimous whatsoever. I think it's, as the season goes on, I think Duke would they had a rough game against Kentucky. I didn't think they were going to win that game whatsoever. I thought Kentucky had a bunch of veteran guys. They played college basketball together, and Duke's got a bunch of freshmen running their starting 5. But I still think they're great. They're going to be great players, and it's a long season. And I also love Con Knuppel. I think he's a great shooter. But it's as the season goes on, I think we'll find slowly who will be the unanimous number 1. For me personally, I think Cooper Flagg's still up there. He's still in my top 3. But I think, Domini's entered my top five. I think Knupple's in the top 10. So we'll see. But I think it's still very, very close.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I coming into this year, I was looking into mock drafts and I was seeing that like almost all the top 14 guys were all freshmen. I'm like, this is crazy. Surely these guys are.
That's pretty typical though. I mean, not maybe all of them, but usually 12 of the top, 15 guys are going to be freshmen.
Anyway, I was sure that some of these guys were going to fall off, and I'm like, these guys aren't going to immediately live up to their hype. But I have been so impressed by so many of them. I was watching Trey Johnson just destroy Ohio State. We were getting a little scared there. We're like, this guy is single-handedly carrying Texas. That dude does not miss from three. Cooper Flag. I mean, I'm with Josh on this one. He's still my number one guy. He can do everything. He can create off the dribble. He can get to the basket. He's physical. He has a nice shot, good touch. He just checks all the boxes. I think Dylan Harper, just the watching him play, he's just so smooth. He's a smooth jump shot. He's good at getting to the basket, good passer. And I mean, Agor Demin, we talked about him before the show. I would say we all kind of saw this coming a little bit. He has been phenomenal. His shooting has been great, averaging about 7 assists a game. Like all these guys are really surpassing my expectations. At least I think it could be a real toss up towards like the top of the draft.
Right. Any comments before we move on, Drew?
No, I mean, I am Rich. You know me. I'm like always, when it comes to the actual college basketball, I'm always going to lean towards the veterans. But the young guys have been super impressive. I mean, you guys hit on all the big names. I mean, across the board, though, like out of my neck of the woods, guys like Mikey Lewis, guys like Tyrone Riley, like freshmen that were not on the radars are playing outstanding basketball. Look at it here. Mikey Lewis is going to be better than Nathan Mahaney. I've already seen enough to 100% claim that. Tyrone Riley from USF, I was excited to hear he was going there, seeing them kind of get their foot in the door on some of these bigger, 4-star, not a 5-star guy, but like these higher level prospects. He's been awesome. Now, granted, they haven't played a very great schedule outside that Boise game, but regardless, when they needed him, he's shown up. So I know he's on the list. We'll talk about him later too, but it's a really great year for freshmen because we're seeing them play great basketball too. It's not just like, oh, he's a freak athlete. Yeah, that obviously is part of the equation here, but we're seeing guys make plays, put the ball on the deck, defend, rebound, high IQs on display. So, I mean, I think across the board, we might not have that super dominant team like I was talking about, like a UConn this year, but we are getting really great play from all levels of the game, which is always good because the freshmen are what draw the casual fans in because that's who everyone expects to get drafted. And it makes it more fun. It's more fun when a BYU is still relevant after Mark Pope leaves because you've got these, stud freshmen coming in and carrying the way. Or, when a USF is better, basketball is better when mid-major programs are starting to get in the mix for these stud recruits because it's not fun when 6 5-star guys go to one team, half of them don't play, they end up transferring anyways, and it derails their career. Calipari. No,
you could throw in Coach K and Shire in there now too. So they're Shire is probably the guiltiest one of them all right now.
He got out coached like hell in that game, in my opinion. But anyways, doesn't take anything away though. I still love Cooper Flag. That's still my guy right now. I do agree with the boys
me
here.
too.
Like
Me
Cooper
too.
Flag as it stands is still my guy. The way that the physicality with which he plays already tells me he'll be fine because he will will himself to relevance in a game as a rebounder, as a defender, as a shot blocker, and he's going to earn easy buckets. And then when the shot's falling, he puts the ball on the deck. Yeah, like I said earlier on our last episode, big Cooper Flag guy.
Yeah, and I, his jumper has looked great. I've seen him make pull-up jumpers, like a point guard, So yeah, I haven't jumped off the bandwagon. It's just I think it's closer now than we expected maybe a month ago. All right. So my next question to you guys is we have the top 25, and if you want to click on the link, you can bring it up. I agree with most teams here, but are there any pretenders? And Josh, I know there's one team on here that's in the top 10 that we thought they were crazy for putting them at 14 to start the season. Are we wrong?
Yeah.
Are we wrong about Purdue? Are they the 6th best team in the country?
I got to hand it to Coach Painter, man. He's making me eat my words right now.
Yeah, but they got it handed to him last night at Marquette.
They got that was a rough game to watch for them. I think they were still celebrating from that Alabama one for sure.
Yeah.
I do think they are a top 25 team. I'm liking a lot from what I'm seeing from Braden Smith. I had my doubts about him before the season started, saying he's Big Ten preseason player of the year. I didn't think he, was going to make that jump. And, he's proven me wrong. I'm looking right now, 14.5 points a game, 6 rebounds, 9 assists in just first 5 games of the season. Trey Kaufman-Renn has made a humongous leap. He's taking over. He's obviously no one's that Zach Edey, but he's getting to that Edey role of that low post guy. And he's every time he gets the ball, I was watching that Bama game. It was like he was scoring at will in the low post. It was ridiculous. Every hook shot, every layup was gone right in. And yeah, also I think Fletcher Loyer has been playing pretty solid. I'm not big on him too, but he's been shooting the ball really well. I'm seeing, 56% from the field, 65% from 3, 16 points a game. And I'm loving a person I really like is CJ Cox. I think can be a real stud for Purdue.
Not even a top 300 guy. No. Not even a top 300 guy. They do.
Coach Painter was looking for someone else, and they found this guy.
They do have the who actually started last night, and I think his last name might be Harris. They do have a top 60 guy that plays the same position.
Jakari Harris.
Yeah. So he actually started last night, but Cox is actually overall, so far has outplayed him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not a top 300 guy.
Yeah, and them losing, they lost Daniel Jacobson, their freshman, who got injured for the season. He's redshirting. It's definitely going to blow for the team.
He was a 7'3" guy, I believe.
He's a big guy.
We had talked about in the preseason preview, and then they replaced him with like a 7'1" guy, and they have another 7-footer somewhere there on the bench.
Will Berg, 7'2".
Berg is the guy who's starting, and he's what, 7'2"?
7'2"
right.
From Sweden.
And then they have another 7-foot freshman who was like a top 150 guy it's laying around on the bench.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Here's going to be my point. And I said this in the preview show, and I'm going to stand by it. I'm going to stand by it till they prove me wrong. This team doesn't play good defense without Edey. Okay. And my concern was, I knew they had good shooters. Okay. We knew it. Even without the freshmen, these guys are still good shooters. But the question is, would they be able to get the open shots? They used to shoot wide open all the time. Could they knock them down this year with a hand in their face? But what they're doing is they have a lot more shooters on the court now. And while Kaufman-Renn's not a shooter, but he's about the only guy on that team.
But that's also a thing. It's like you still have that threat in the low post. So you're going to have help defense come. For Renn, and you're going to swing that out to, Loyer or Smith and knock that down.
So I'm not arguing that they're a good offensive team. And a lot of the credit has to go to Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith and Loyer. But defensively, Alabama missed so many open shots.
They did.
So many open shots. Last night, Marquette didn't miss them, and they win by double figures. So this is what I'm concerned about with this Purdue team. Yeah, they can put up points, but can they stop anybody? And we picked them as a tournament team. So it's not like we didn't.
No, of course.
We just thought the 14 was too high. And you know what? I still think it's too high. I don't think they're the 14th best team in the country.
Well, now they're 6.
Right, but they're going to fall. They're going to fall. They're going to fall.
They will fall. I mean, losing that game to Marquette.
Yeah, they'll probably fall back to around 14. So how about?
But then again,
is there anybody else on this list, Joey, that you're like, man, I don't know if that's really a top 25 team?
I gotta say, Rich, I'm really not high on Illinois. They haven't played it. Yeah, I remember y'all had Illinois in the tournament. I don't think I did, but if I did, I didn't have them very high. I mean, they haven't really played anyone.
Not yet. So we played tonight. Tonight they're playing Alabama, and no score updates.
Yeah, I haven't been checking. So if Illinois is blowing out Alabama, just forget everything I'm saying right now. But I don't know. They haven't played anyone. I just don't think they have a big scorer. Will Riley is leading them in points, and he's not even their starter. They just have a lot of guys that are. I just feel like they just have a collection of role players. Like Jockey Sonis
Wow.
is good passer, good rebounder, 9 a game. Will Riley, I think he's a solid like role player. Hugh Mauritius will get you maybe 10 a game. I just think when they go up against a big team and they need their Terrence Shannon. When they go up against a big team, I think they're gonna need that guy that's gonna get them buckets. And I just don't think they have that. Also, they brought in Keelan Boswell, and I was worried
Yeah,
about him because
he's not
he's been
playing well.
horrible. I was worried about him in
Yeah, he's
Arizona
not
because
playing well.
I saw him playing in the tournament and he was not shooting the ball well. And I see Illinois get him, and I was really curious to see how that would play out. And he has not been playing
What I
well.
say in our pregame show? He takes too many jump shots and he doesn't use that physical, powerful running back body that he has to go in there and drive it. And until he does that, until he starts mixing it up and taking more selective outside shots, he's going to struggle. But here's the thing about that team is just about everybody, is either in their first year with the team and in their first year in college basketball, or in the case of Boswell, who's still 19, even though he's a junior. It's a very young, inexperienced team, but I think the talent, I think you have like 4 or 5 NBA prospects on that team, but right now, we'll find out tonight. It's still, even if they get walloped tonight, I'm still not ready to write them off. Personally, but we talked about Illinois and UCLA. We said, man, these teams just don't have the experience. Will they be able to put it together, or won't they? And so, yeah. So, point taken. Drew, you have anybody on here that?
I do agree with Joy. I'm not super high on Illinois. Like, I think they're a tournament team. I think they're a good team. Are they? Like, I look at some of the teams that aren't in the top 25, like that are just outside, and I'm like, I've seen other teams I feel like played better basketball against equal, if not somewhat better competition. So, and just anyone listening, we're not saying any of these teams are terrible. They're not going to make March Madness and they suck. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying when you're top 25 out of 360 programs, you got to be the creme de la creme. And I don't know if Illinois is like, I look at the rest of this list and I'm like, and I know they're 25, so I get it on paper, but like, I like everyone else above them. I'm not super high on Florida. Some of that might be the Golden situation, just see how that plays out. But I wasn't super high on them just overall coming into the year. And then I do agree with you guys on Purdue. I think that's 6 is high. I get it. It's a big win against Alabama, but their offense hasn't hit its stride yet. And I think we all feel that Alabama has a chance to be the best offense in the country. Like that's their ceiling is the number 1 offense in the country. So I agree with everything you guys have said. I think for the most part, though, I don't have too many complaints. I think everybody is no one's separated. Like I don't really think there's that big of a gap between 1 through 10. I don't think there's that big of a gap between 11 through 20. I think everyone's kind of in that mix right now, and there's a couple of teams that aren't in that I could see getting back in very quickly. I still really like Texas a lot because I'm a big Trey Johnson guy, and they haven't had Tremont Marks yet. Hasn't even suited up. Like I think when he comes back, that's a team that could make some noise, climb up in there, and get kind of back to business. But no, I don't think there's anything too egregious so far. Granted, it's only 4 games in, and a lot of these teams haven't even really played anybody yet, or open up their schedules.
Yeah, I'm gonna mark this down. If there's one team I think that's in the top 25 that won't make the tournament, and I'm not saying they won't. I predicted they wouldn't in the preseason. Now I'm starting to have a change of heart, but I still think there's a good chance they might not make March Madness, and that's Wisconsin. The only thing they've done is play Arizona. And Arizona, when we talked about the Big 12 preview, we talked about, man, I don't know if I like this collection of players. I don't know how this is all going to fit. And we said the talent on that team comes down to their guards. Well, you know what? Caleb Love, for every great game he has 2 mediocre games and 1 shit game. And his shit game was the other night against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And, even then, they almost got back into the game. I just don't see the talent. I mean, come on. John Tunji? John Tunji's your star? I mean, if there's such a thing as a workman-like player or a journeyman in college basketball, it's Tunji. There's nothing wrong with the guy. He's probably going to have a long career in Europe, but come on. Our Arizona, and I'll tell you, here's another thing. Tommy Lloyd, every time I watch that team, every time I watch Arizona, the more and more I start to doubt Tommy Lloyd.
We got a spot for him back on the bench if he wants to come home. There's a nice warm seat that he can sit right next to Theo. We're saving it for him.
I know we set all kinds of records for like the best record, is like I don't know if it was a Pac-12 record or maybe a national record for like most wins in his first couple of years as a coach. But, the first year they got knocked out in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Last year they had a Sweet 16 matchup that they were favored to win, and Love has one of his disappearing games, and Arizona disappeared with him. I'll tell you what, Caleb Love, he has all the talent in the world, but the guy, I just never seen a more erratic player. And the longer I watch him, the more I doubt whether he is draftable. Is an NBA player.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, it's at some point you got to you can't say you're the guy. And I mean, how long can you stick your, the feather in your cap for that one run that they made when he was back with UNC? Was that 2 years ago now? 3 years ago?
Yeah, and for that stretch, he was really good.
Yeah,
but even that year, I mean, I think Caleb Love is now in his 5th year, and last year was the only year that he ever shot above 40% from the field. The field. Think about that. All right. So that game upset me.
I like to also reiterate. I mean, put up 103 points, but their next game they're going up against who they play? Rio Grande Valley.
We're talking Wisconsin now, and they won by 3. Yeah,
they won by 3, and it's like I do like John Blackwell a lot. I think he's a great player.
Yeah, for
Wisconsin. I'm not very high on Max Kleisman. I'm not very high on him.
He's a solid player.
He's a solid player, but I don't think this production from John Tunji is going to continue. I mean,
well, even if it does, he's not going to score you're right. He's not going to score like that every night. But John Tunji's a solid player. Kleinsmith's a solid player. Stephen Kroll is an above average center who really wasn't very much involved the other night. Arizona crushed them on the offensive boards, but they only had 6 assists the whole game. 6 assists. Our boy from BYU has that many, in the first 5 minutes of the game.
In halftime. For
6 assists as a team the whole game. This was Arizona losing the game. This wasn't Wisconsin winning it so much. All right. I'm going to list off some teams. We don't have to comment on all of them. I just wondered if, what you guys, if there's any of these, and Wisconsin's on that list, these are teams that we either considered to be bubble teams or we didn't even consider them as bubble teams. And now they're looking like bubble teams, or maybe even better. Almost all of them are undefeated. But I'll just read off the list. Pittsburgh, Wisconsin, Penn State, Texas Tech, Central Florida. Now, we really beat them up. I wouldn't mind saying a word about them. Arizona State, Utah State. Utah State's winning they haven't played anybody, but they're winning their games by an average of 40 points per game. LSU, Georgia, and San Francisco. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you. Any of those teams you like? You definitely think? I mean, obviously, Wisconsin's in the top 25, and we just talked about them.
Yeah.
But are there any of the other these teams that have caught your eye?
I mean, I'll speak on the two that I've seen a lot. I'm trying to catch up with work. For me, it's always hard to catch games because I work in college basketball, which is a blessing and a curse. The two teams that I've seen the most about that I'll comment on, Arizona State and USF. I'll start with the Sun Devils. Coach, they leave a lot to be desired from an IQ standpoint. I believe that offensively in particular, there is a lot of meat left on the bone there for the size, the athleticism, the skill. I mean, again, they have top freshmen. They brought in some solid, like they got solid veterans.
They have like 3 top 60 guys. One of them the top 10 guys.
Top 10. You know, what is it? Jaden Quintence, the center.
Yeah,
I like that kid. That kid's going to be. He's got a feel for the post. He's not super polished, but man, he doesn't back down. He plays super hard. He defends the rim. He finishes through contact. I think he's got the makings to be a force. If he sticks with the whole college basketball scene here, I think he's gonna be really good. But they're gonna catch some people because they play really hard. They are constantly putting pressure on you. Now, again, some of that pressure is not pretty, and sometimes it results in them chucking a three or just playing volleyball with the backboard. But if you do not match their energy and their intensity, you can be in for a kind of a rock fight with these guys. They can muck up games, and when they're hitting, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name.
for Arizona State, the freshman
Yes,
shooter, Sandin.
yes. If he starts seeing a couple go in, he's got all the confidence in the world to take them. I'm not predicting them to go crack the top 25, but I've seen enough from them. They've played a solid schedule. You know, they took Gonzaga down to an 8-point game and were very competitive. They just beat Grand Canyon. They beat Santa Clara, two mid-major teams that I felt pretty good about, especially out west. So they're putting together a little bit of a resume here where they've played some solid competition. They're not backing down. They're winning games that you would expect a Power 5 program to win. I still need to see more consistency, but I've liked what I've seen. I didn't expect much from them. I know everyone got kind of, freaked out by that like 60-point drubbing that they took from Duke in an exhibition, but it was an exhibition. I think that if you do not bring it, these guys are going to make your life tough. And then USF, we talked about it. The perimeter play has been off the hook. Those guards are super dynamic. Tyrone Riley is breaking out and looking like one of the best freshmen in the country. They've just looked really great offensively, but all my concerns still do remain kind of on the defensive side of the ball, size-wise. It was a great win against Boise. They weathered the storm. Danghart played well, so it wasn't like they got them kind of, caught them on a really bad game and they just didn't play well. It was a back-and-forth game. At Boise, maybe they lose. I think being at home was kind of the toss-up that put in their favor, but they played really well. The guards have looked really, really sharp. Long Beach State, Chicago State don't do a lot for me. They did what they're supposed to do. I think they won both of those games by an average of like 36 points. But in terms of scoring the basketball, we haven't even really seen Ryan Beasley do much. Reigning WCC Freshman of the Year, he missed some time early with an injury. He hasn't really gotten into a flow, but
he's coming off the bench. I think he had 6 steals though the other night.
No, he did. Yeah, as I'm saying, we haven't really seen him get going, and he has the potential to score in bunches just like all of those guys do. I mean, he scored 17 at St. Mary's. He had 14 when Gonzaga came to town last year. Like, he can get going. So I'm concerned about them defensively. So I'm still holding off on like the for real stamp because I really need to see them defend. I mean, 3 of their 4 wins are against Cal Poly, which is kind of it's a transitioning program. They just brought in a D2 coach who brought a bunch of his D2 guys. Cal Poly gave him a game, but so not the most impressive win. Again, Boise, glad to see them pulling that out. That's the type of win that I feel like has eluded USF in the past years.
Yes.
Where like they haven't been able to beat those tournament teams, those really good mid majors, those all conference player of the year type players coming to their building and give them hell. They were able to pull that win out, and it was a back and forth fight. So these next 2 games for them are going to tell me pretty much everything I need to know about USF, at least for now, and that's with Memphis and Clemson. Like, we're going to find out. They've got Memphis in the Chase Center, so de facto home game. It's a neutral site, but, it's in their city. And then they got Clemson out in Daytona Beach, part of what I forget which tournament they're playing in, their Feast Week tournament, but they're going to be out in Florida where they'll get Clemson and then they'll either get Penn State or Fordham. So I'm excited to see what the Dons can do. I think their game plan is going to be try to outscore people and run and gun and let the guards do their thing. Malik Thomas he's a 40% 3-point shooter last year. He's shooting 12% from three, but he's been super dynamic into the basket. That number will correct itself. I think Marcus Williams has legitimate claim to be the second best guard in the conference. We don't talk about him because it's Marciulionis versus Nembhard. I think he's legitimately in the conversation of potentially being better than Marciulionis, at least in terms of putting the ball in the basket. And, don't sleep on him. We have him at our dark horse for Defensive Player of the Year, but Newberry has played good basketball so far this year. He's taken on the challenges of guarding the Tyson Dangenharts. He's really stepped up for a team that needs size and needs physicality. He's provided that. Lingard has been okay, but again, he's only playing, I think, like 20 minutes a game. Now, they haven't needed him because they haven't played a team with that traditional big or that size advantage. But if those four guards do what they do.
Well, I mean, Boise's a big team.
Yeah, but I think
they
Omar
don't
Stanley
they don't have a 7-footer.
Yeah.
All their bigs
Omar
are like
Stanley
6'8",
got in foul
6'9".
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Omar Stanley got in foul trouble. Newberry did a pretty good job checking Dangenhart when he was there. So, I mean, I'm talking like when they play some of these other teams, we want to see them make a run. They're going to have to face down Graham Ike, Mitchell Saxon. They're going to have to face down, they're going to have to deal with an Ian Shefflin from Clemson, who we know is a super high motor. So, we're going to learn a lot about this team, and I'm really proud of them for scheduling the way they've scheduled. I have been critical of them in the past of kind of being schedule merchants and playing a bunch of Long Beach states all year, and then they get 40-balled by Gonzaga and St. Mary's and the season falls apart. For them to say, we're going to play at Boise, we're going to play Memphis, we're going to play Clemson. They got St. Louis on deck. Now, I don't know if Robbie Avila will be back by then. I don't think he will be. But, it's been nice to see them schedule some actual good competition. And so we're going to learn a lot about them. So I haven't seen the other teams play enough to really comment, but I've seen both of those teams play 3 times now. I was at the USF Cal Poly game. So as it stands right now, I thought Santa Clara would be the third best team in the WCC, and they've been the most disappointing.
I'm not so sure that USF isn't the second best team in the WCC.
I was going to say, USF not only is the third best team in the conference right now, the way that they're scoring the basketball and those guards are playing, they might be number 2. But we'll see. St. Mary's has looked pretty good against Nebraska in moments. They look really bad and really good in that game.
Right. Joey, any team on this list that you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas Tech here. I remember you and Josh during the Big 12 show. Y'all were high on Texas Tech. I was a little bit more wary. I wasn't as confident in JT Toppin, but he's been playing phenomenal at the center position, averaging over 20 points a game, averaging 9.5 rebounds a game. He has been terrific. I was questioning their scoring, their shooting, their guard play, but their depth is what's really impressed me. Chance McMillan's been really solid. Kerwin Overton, Darian Williams, the forward they got back last year, hitting threes. He's been really solid. Devon Cambridge, who, fun fact, his sisters play women's basketball at Ohio State. One of the freshmen, Jelani Cambridge, she was like a top 10 or something, and she was absolutely balling out early. That's just a little side tangent. Anyway, Texas Tech, I mean, they still have Elijah Hawkins, who's great at Minnesota. Federico, one of the best names in college basketball. Like, they have so much depth. They have guard scoring. They have solid passers. They have good big play. Like, they really check all the boxes. And yeah, this easily could be a solid tournament team.
Yeah, I agree. Josh, any team on this list that you like?
I mean, yeah, Joey already mentioned, I'm a big Red Raider fan. I think JT Toppin's a great player. A team that I'm actually pretty surprised on is Penn State.
Yeah.
I had them pretty low. I think we all collectively had them. Yeah. Collectively had them pretty low for the Big Ten. But from what I'm seeing, these guys can score the ball. In the last, they played 5 games and they've scored 103 times already, which is
and they're winning
impressive.
Their games by over 30 points.
A big margin. Yeah, and again, they're playing, Binghamton, UMBC, but it's big margins. I think Puff Johnson has been playing really well for them. Remember his days in UNC. He was kind of struggling last year for Penn State. But he's shooting the ball a lot better from 3. I've always been a fan of Ace Baldwin Jr. He's been playing pretty well. 16 points a game. I could see this team. If they do pretty well. I mean, obviously it's been 5 games. Their non-conference schedule's not the greatest. Their best team. They beat their best team, Virginia Tech. I'd say is their best team that they are going to play non-conference wise. But they pulled together some Big Ten wins against some good teams. This team could make they could be a good bubble team. I think for sure.
Yeah.
But they got to see how they play against these big guys first for sure.
Yeah. Zach Hicks has really been balling
Zach
out.
Hicks. He's been balling out for them too.
Penn State. Yeah.
He's averaging 15 and 10. Wow, Jesus.
She's shooting about 7.8 threes a game, hitting 50%. My big concern with Penn State was they couldn't shoot.
He was knocking them down against Virginia Tech. I watched that game for a half because he was already out of control at halftime. So, but for half, I mean, Zach Hicks was the man knocking them down. All right, so next topic is going to be most disappointing team. I'll start with you, Josh. Do you have a pick?
Do I have a pick? I'm a Big East guy, and like I always thrive for the Big East. Be good, and I think it's important for Big East teams to get recognition nationally for the tournament. And because last year I thought we got screwed pretty big last year.
Yeah, St. John's.
I think
St. John's especially.
Yeah, I think but even like teams like Seton Hall, who I thought that they won the NIT championship, and I think they had a pretty solid resume, and they had who they put in like Virginia and Colorado State, and that game was a terrible game, and like both those teams got blown out. It was awful.
Both those teams should have made. Both of those teams 100% deserve to be in. Even in the first four setting, they deserve to be playing.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, but a team that's really been disappointing, and like I think it's time for him to pack his bags is Villanova. I think I don't know what is happening over there. I think it's just I understood the hire of Kyle Neptune. He came through in the system, under Jay Wright. But I'm watching these games of Villanova, and it's just like there's no offensive scheme. The defense looks so sloppy.
Turnovers.
It doesn't look like it looks like a JV squad out there. It's so bad. And like it's putting a bad rep on the conference as a whole. Like even I think DePaul's been doing pretty solid. I think they already surpassed their win total from last year. And I think it was like 3, and they have like 4 now. So it's like it's not great for the conference. They also like Seton Hall has not looked great whatsoever. They lost to, I think, Hofstra in like a terrible battle. It was like 49-48. It was just like, really, it's just some not great basketball to watch. It's just, I think my disappointing, I wouldn't say it's a team.
They lost
conference.
They lost to Columbia.
And they lost to Fordham too.
Did they?
Which was, but I think it was a buzzer beater too.
Yeah.
They lost to St. Joe's.
They lost it. I'm talking about Seton Hall, but
yeah, Seton Hall's been terrible.
Yeah, they've been awful.
Seton Hall won the other day by a score of 54-28 over I forget
Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner. I always call them Wagner.
I remember that game because I took the spread on Wagner because I thought I think it was like 15 and a half, and I was like, oh, that's too many points. I'm like, it's like and then Wagner even they looked terrible, but. Anyways, I think overall, I think the Villanova's looked really bad, but I think the conference needs to get some good game. And I think the win over Purdue was a great win for the conference.
Yeah. Joey, I'll save myself for last. Joey, do you have a disappointing team?
Oh, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Arizona, like we knew they'd be bad, but I thought they'd be better.
We picked them for the tournament. So I don't know if we say we'd be bad.
I'm still expecting them better than this. Caleb Love, we know he's inefficient, but he's averaging 11 a game. I thought he'd put up 17 or 18 with bad shooting splits, but 11. They brought in Trey Townsend from Oakland. He was they were supposed to be a 1-2 punch. He's averaging 9. They just have no scoring. We already talked about the loss to Wisconsin. Like they didn't look good. Wisconsin's not that good of a team. I don't want to talk about them too
The
much
only
because I
player
know
that's looking good on that team is KJ Lewis. And he
absolutely.
single-handedly basically brought them back. They were losing by 18 to Wisconsin, and then they tied it at 65, mostly thanks to KJ Lewis. And then they lost the lead again and couldn't, it kind of got a little bit out of hand toward the end. But KJ Lewis is playing good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time in Arizona because we talked about them a little while ago, but I heard disappointing. I just had to bring them up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Drew?
Yeah, I mean, Rich, you and I have basically, since we've known each other for 3+ years now, we've always kind of had our internal like coaches hot seat. And for a long time, we always joked that Haas at Stanford was the poster boy for that. You and I are both have been in agreement. Neptune is the new heir apparent to that. It is awful. Look, you lose a Jay Wright, I get it. You're losing an elite coach. No one's expecting you to come in and do what he did, lead the way he led, and all that. But like, it's unacceptable. Like, you have more than enough talent to win the games that they've been playing on paper. Like, almost to the point where like you should be able to even just roll the ball out and just win some of these games. Like, it shouldn't even have to be about X's and O's. Like, Dixon and Poplar alone should be enough to beat Columbia. You should be able to go with those two guys, go to battle and go, we're going to win this game by 10, 15 points. And you don't. So the thing that really sucks is that Dixon's actually having a really solid year so far. Like, that's the thing when you're like, what more is the guy supposed to do? He's averaging damn near 25 points, 8 boards, 2 assists, and he's shooting like 60% from 30, 56% from the field. Like, it's time for him to go, pack it up, move it on. Like, basketball is better when the Big East is good. It's a lot better when Villanova is good because it just gives you another team. But so I don't want to beat that. I don't want to beat that dead horse. I agree with Joey. Like, Arizona has not looked like the Arizona teams that we've seen in the past couple of years where, yeah, they faltered in March, but they've been juggernauts during the regular season. They haven't even shown that. I'll do a smaller mid-major team just because I was high on them and I've kind of put my name behind them. So I'll own up to this one. Santa Clara has been a big disappointment for me on the mid-major side of things. Again, I projected them to be the second best team in the conference. There's still a lot of time left. And I guess in their defense, out of all the teams in the conference, they've played probably the second hardest schedule. And they've also had the most road-heavy schedule. Of their 4 games, they've played 2 true neutral site games. They played in South Dakota, Vegas. They blew their home opener to North Dakota State, I think it was. They had a 20-point lead at one point and ended up losing that game. They lost to Arizona State in Vegas. Not a lot of shame in that one. It was a decent game. They kind of battled back and then ended up losing by like 8. And then they got absolutely thumped by Nevada. They lost to Nevada by like 26, which was pretty disheartening. Now they just destroyed Riverside in kind of, I think, a must-win, must-dominate, get-right game. But they've been very disappointing. I was very high on them being a really good mid-major team. You get Carlos Stewart back, Don LeBall. I was very on the train of him potentially taking that step and really asserting himself into potential NBA conversations, and he's still teetering. He hasn't taken that full jump. The one thing I will victory lap, Elijah Mai has looked like their best player, arguably, at times. The junior college transfer that we talked about when we did the preview, he's had double figures, I think, in every game. He just had 20 against Nevada, I believe. He had, I think, 14 or 16. Might have actually had 18 against Arizona State. He looks like he belongs. He looks like a great piece for the future. They have the size. They have the individual skill. Herb Sendek is a good coach. He had 4 20-win seasons in a row. But this was a team that I was very confident in penciling in as a March Madness bid. And I don't want to say they're on life support, but they need to rattle off some wins now because you can't blow a 20-point lead against North Dakota State and then go get thumped by Nevada, who is a good team. We all agreed was going to be, maybe in that upper third of the Mountain West, but they're not 30. They shouldn't be 30 points better than you because I don't think they're a March Madness team or by any stretch a lock. So if that's the level you're trying to reach, you got to go win the games that you're supposed to win. So Villanova, pull the plug. I mean, I don't know. You don't fire a guy mid-season. I know college basketball is that's a little bit weirder to do, barring scandal. But that ship has sailed. Neptune needs to be gone. And then on the, the Drew Barton kind of guys, flag planting with Santa Clara, they got some work to do to get back in my good graces because I need someone to take down the Gales because I'm really getting sick and tired of having to hear the whole St. Mary's is on Gonzaga's level stuff.
I think your best hope is San Francisco.
Hey man, they owe me one. I gave that school a couple $100,000. Went there twice, 2 degrees. The least they can do is win a freaking basketball game for me. Jesus.
So I'll bring up my mid-major first, and I haven't seen them play, so I'm not going to comment on them. All I know is Ohio's off to a 1-3 start. This is a team that I thought was pretty much hands down the pick to win the MAC. Jake agreed with me. We thought they had 3 all-conference players on the team, and so far it's just not showing up. So I'll leave it at that. Maybe we'll talk about Ohio more as we get into the season. And they certainly could turn it around once they get into the MAC because they haven't had like a total cakewalk schedule. But Villanova was my pick. They don't have a point guard. They don't have a center. Their center is awful. That kid they brought in from Fresno State, Boyke. He's terrible. So I'm watching Villanova the other night lose to Virginia, and Virginia pretty much controlled that game from the get-go. And this is a team that with Virginia, we thought at best was going to finish in the middle of the pack in the ACC at best. This is a Virginia team that has a coach that just took over a couple of weeks ago. He just took over the team a couple of weeks ago, and they just blew Villanova out of the water pretty much. And what I was thinking during this game, and I don't know if this will resonate with any of you, are you guys familiar with the Tyco game, electric football, that was invented like in the 60s? And people still somewhat play it today. But basically what it is you have these little players, 11 guys on the side. And the whole concept of the game is, now they've made it much better. But back when I played it, when I was a kid, the board vibrates and then the players move. And so they have like these little slots on the bottom of their platform that they're supposed to go straight. But what they end up doing is just going all over the place. And a lot of times you'll end up with like a guy in the corner is just going like in circles like this. And you'll have another guy that's off in the corner going in circles. And you'll have a couple of guys that are running the wrong way. And that's kind of the image I had in my head when I was watching Villanova play against Virginia. I was remembering, I literally looked up to see, do people actually still play this game? Because that's what came into my mind. Electric Tyco football. Look it up, folks. That's what Villanova looks like right now. All right. So now we'll talk about players and we'll keep it positive. We'll talk about, but we're going to look at not who maybe the best players are in the country, but who are some of the biggest surprises. I'll read off the list. And if you like a guy on this list, Joey, you better like a guy on this list. Yeah, and one of them is maybe, I don't know if we should, I don't know if Yegor Demin should be on this list. I just put him on there because I don't think he was really in that discussion of top 10 players at the beginning of the season, and now I think he is. So the other one, he's with BYU. He's the freshman point guard. We have Ty Johnson from UC Davis leading the country in scoring. We have Nick Martinelli from Northwestern, who picked up with all those players that were injured, and now they're all coming back, by the way. I actually think Northwestern now has a full lineup now, but Martinelli has just been going crazy. We have freshman Jacob Kofi, who I got to see beat Villanova. This guy's 6'10", can play center, can play power forward, has a beautiful stroke. We have Ian Martinez, friend of the show. We had him on in the preseason. He is, the one thing that was always lacking in Ian's game was he never seemed to have that killer instinct, take over a game. Well, now he's averaging 23 points per game. We have Jaden Brownell, who just recently played against Michigan State. He's Samford. He plays center for them, but his natural position would be power forward probably because he's only about 6'8", 6'9". But he's shooting the lights out and also rebounding well. We have Chase Ross, who I think is quickly emerging as Marquette's second best player. We have Caleb Banks, who Josh has got to be familiar with. He is absolutely killing it with Tulane.
Crazy. Insane.
And lastly, we have a guy we've mentioned a couple times already, Tyrone Riley of USF. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you. One guy on this list you'd like to talk about? I'd love for you to talk about Riley because I haven't seen him. I wanted to watch that Boise State game, and when I went to watch it, it wouldn't load for me, so I haven't seen them.
But funny enough, the only game I haven't seen him play like fully was the Boise State game because I was working, so I didn't see there. I mean, it was definitely his least effective game across the board. I mean, he's still I have a lot of connections there, but he still played, like, from my buddy who is there said he still was really effective. He had 10 points, pulled down 6 rebounds, only committed 2 fouls, had a block, and he was 5 for 9 from the field. He was like, hey, like, it definitely was a step up in competition. That 30-point explosion where he went on like a 12-0 run by himself against Cal Poly. He's like, look, that's not sustainable. It's not the norm. But he looked like he belonged. Again, the last 2 teams they played haven't been great, but this kid gives USF something that they have not had in recent years. If you go back and look at the Don's best players the past, 4 or 5 years since they've kind of returned to some relevance, they're mostly known for the kind of the small, undersized, dynamic scoring guard. You had your Jamari Bouyes, your Khalil Shabazz. Marcus Williams isn't so much so undersized or small. He's got a little bit more of a frame to him, but even then he's a 6'2", maybe 6'2", 6'3" max scoring guard. Mogbo is there as the high energy kind of point forward, undersized big. This guy is a legitimate 6'6" athlete out on the wings, scoring at all 3 levels, putting the ball on the deck, getting out in transition. I mean, he looks the part of a more holistic basketball player. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if this guy's not at USF in a year. I would just serious. I mean, obviously, we have to see him as they play the tougher teams. He'll have Memphis, he'll have Clemson, he'll obviously get St. Mary's, Gonzaga. But like from what I've seen, just his physicality, the way he plays, the intensity which he plays, the 3-ball, the shot has looked good. I mean, he's hitting at a 53% clip. It's all there. This kid is really, really good. If he played at a bigger school, we'd be talking. I mean, he's not putting up the same numbers as a Trey Johnson or a Cooper Flag, but he's definitely in that tier, like right below. I'm really, really in on this guy. I would like to see him, hopefully stay at a USF and kind of help put them back on the map because this is like future WCC Player of the Year stuff from this guy. And like I said, you can point to the schedule not being great, but against a Boise team, he played 30 minutes. He was 5 for 9 from the field. Like I said, pulled down 6 boards, still got to 10 points, didn't commit a bunch of fouls. Like they weren't able to bully him. They weren't able to go at him and target him. I really like Tyrone Riley. And to be honest, he wasn't even really on my radar too much coming in. A lot of the talk about Mikey Lewis.
Yeah, 125 in the composite rankings. So,
exactly.
He's a boy. That's the cutoff. He's a 4-star, I believe, but he's on the lower end.
He's right on the cusp.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, this, you can see it. And I think he's in a great system where, he can kind of play off the ball right now. He still doesn't have necessarily that, like, isolation, pull-up game, kind of break you down. But as that kind of secondary wing scorer, I like this kid a lot, man. I think I've seen him play now 3 times. Again, I'm really looking forward to seeing this next couple of games because we're going to see him go up against comparable athletes, comparable size. But this Tyrone Riley has the makings to be the best Don we've seen in a while, who isn't kind of more of a niche player. Like we're not talking like undersized, low efficiency, high volume guard, or a Mobo who's kind of just out athleting people at this level. Like this is a high major player. On the hilltop from everything I've seen. I'm definitely buying stock in Tyrone Riley right now. And I will give a shout out to Mikey Lewis. He has also been very impressive. The 2 freshmen in the conference have been really awesome. They have both really shown out and shown up for me. Now the next question for this conference is, can you get guys like that to come to a non-Gonzaga program and stick around? Because neither of those guys are NBA guys. Like Tyrone Riley is not an NBA guy right now. There's more work to be done there, but you see it. And the hope is that he doesn't, he sticks around and becomes that guy on the hilltop. Mikey Lewis becomes that guy in Moraga. But Whereas there's been some disappointments in the WCC. Tyron Riley is definitely not one of them.
Right. Joey, anybody on this list, or has someone else come to mind that surprised you?
Well, I have to bring up my Northwestern boy, Nick Martinelli. For the listeners that did not hear the Big Ten show, I'm an unofficial Northwestern fan this year. I think they're going to be solid. I think they're going to make the tournament. And Nick Martinelli has been proving me right. You know how you look at like NBA scores like Kevin Durant and you say that player scores effortlessly? Nick Martinelli is the opposite. He looks like he is like fighting with his life on the line on every single shot. He plays so much in the post, and he is just bruising and battling. The shots are never swishes. They never bank in the backboard cleanly. He's bumping around. The shots are rolling around the rim, but he scores. He finds a way. He scores in so many different ways. He's got a nice jump shot. He's got great touch around the rim. He's a good cutter. He gets out in transition. I mean, he shoots the ball. He plays paranoid, is what it is. Like, he plays down the post like he's about to get attacked. He shoots the ball quickly like someone's about to come and swat it. When he shoots, his like release point, it's so high. Like, everything about his game is just like it's almost like he's scared of defenders. But it works. He's putting up 24 a game. Speaking of Northwestern, I just wanted to mention Brooks Barnheiser, averaging 10 rebounds a game and also 4 assists, leading Northwestern rebounds and assists. Known as the sharpshooter.
He just got back, right? A couple of games.
Yeah. Oh, it was only one game still.
Oh, okay. So he's only played one game, right? And then, but they're all injured guys. Their center was hurt, and then the kid who got hurt. Ty, what's his name?
Ty Berry.
Ty Berry, I believe, is back now. So Northwestern's healthy. So we'll see what your boys got.
Yeah. The other player I want to mention real quick, Ian Martinez. He said from the show. I love to hear that. He spent 2 years in
Maryland.
Yes, 2 years at Maryland, right?
He played Maryland, yeah.
When my sister went, I was a big fan of his. He was more like, this really good defender, role player, could come off the bench, get you some buckets. But he's really blossomed. I was watching some highlights from March Madness, highlights from this year. He has become a tremendous three-point shooter. Like, I was watching the game against Purdue. He hit like 3 in a row at one point. He was rising over 2 defenders. He does not care. So it is really great to see him really blossom throughout his college career from the defender, the role player, into a number one guy and a true shooter.
Yeah. All right, Josh. Anybody on this list you like, or somebody else?
Yeah, I got to give kudos to my man Caleb Banks. I remember I've watched this guy for the past 2 years, and it was nothing special. This guy, he comes in, plays like 10 minutes a game. He'll get you a couple rebounds, maybe a putback, but he had no offensive game whatsoever. And as college basketball comes around, the week goes on, I'm seeing blowing up. Caleb Banks. I'm like, Caleb Banks, and this dude looks like a completely different player than what I've seen at IU. It's ridiculous what I'm seeing. He's scoring at will. He's shooting 52% on threes. He was never a 3-ball guy, and just this Tulane team looks very good. I would love to shout out Rowan Brombaugh. I think he's been a phenomenal player for Tulane. He played at Georgetown last year.
Yeah.
And, he's been stepping up big for that team. And I'm pretty excited to actually see just how this Tulane team goes on in the conference. I mean, he's averaging 12 a game. He's shooting the ball at a decent rate, taking 6 threes, 35% from 3. It's pretty good. So I got give my kudos to the Green Wave and Caleb Banks, because I would have never in a million years seen this coming of his production.
Right. I mentioned the news and notes of your little blurbs about just about everybody on the list, but for those who haven't seen Diego or Demon, I know he was a highly regarded guy coming out of Europe, but as I said, I don't think he was in the discussion with the people like Cooper Flagg and the guys from Rutgers and stuff like that, but he is now. And now, admittedly, BYU hasn't played anybody, but this guy just hands out dimes left and right. He can go left or right. he can finish with either hand. He can dunk with either hand. And he's big. I think he's like a 6'7" point guard. Is he 6'7" or 6'8"? I forget. It's unbelievable how big he is and how fluid he plays. He is 6'8" point guard. And the kid just plays with ultra fluidity. And I've been really happy to. The one area I was a little worried about was his jumper. Well, so far, through 4 games, he's making 55% of his threes. He's averaging 17 points per game. Interestingly, though, he's only shooting 50% from the free throw line. I expect that to change. I expect one number will go down and one number will go up. 7.5 assists per game, 2.2 steals, and almost a block per game. And only 2 assists. So that's an assist turnover ratio of about 4-1. Which is off the charts. So yeah, BYU has yet to play anybody. That's going to change soon. Watch this kid. I think he's special. I think he's a top 10 pick. All right, so we're going to move on to our final topic, and I don't know if everybody wants to comment on this. I at least beat this to death in our group chat. I wasn't too happy to hear about this news. And I'm not going to go through all the details. If you haven't heard, Todd Golden, the head coach of Florida, has been accused of stalking several female students at Florida. Some of it actually sounds intimidating. I will go into this detail. Apparently, he took photographs of them out in public and then sent them those photographs. Sounds like very intimidating type of behavior. We also sent them other photographs of body parts of his. So the one thing I've been thinking is, why does this guy still have a job? And I guess I'm going to ask you guys this. Drew, you've worked in administrations, or not, not at the AD level or anything like that, but I mean, you've been in the athletic departments. Is it just, I mean, they have multiple people saying very similar things, multiple young women. So, is there? I guess there's a chance he's innocent. Is that what they're waiting for? But why isn't he at least suspended?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you have the money and the power wrapped up in these individuals. We see it in football. We saw it to a degree, different situation, but like, if anything, almost worse with the Alabama thing a couple years ago. You gotta play. They're gonna play their cards carefully. They're gonna back their people until they have a reason not to. And when I say back, I mean they're not gonna, maybe come out and be, crazy defending them, but it's a guilty or innocent until proven guilty. I mean, none of us have insider information. None of us are there. I always thought Golden was kind of a weird guy, for what it's worth. He was at USF while I was there. Now, not weird in this sense. I didn't assume this. He just always kind of seemed like a quirky dude. So, I mean, from what I've heard, he's actively like working with, like he's complying with everything going on behind the scenes, like the investigation.
Like he has a choice. I mean,
yeah, but
let's not applaud him for doing what he's supposed to.
Yeah, I know, but he's not stonewalling anything. I'm not trying to applaud him. I do agree that there should be some administrative leave placed upon him where it's like, look, we're not saying we're firing you. We're not even going to say we're not going to pay you, but like you should be out of the limelight, out of the spotlight until this is resolved. Because if this comes out that it is true, now the entire school and the entire athletic department looks like shit. Like, as right now, he's the one that looks like crap. And if he is proven innocent, then you can come out and go, look, our guy was good. It was all, BS, and it was, fine. But by letting him just kind of go on business as usual, and this is not a one-time thing, it's kind of frustrating. I mean, when I was at USF, there's a lot of reasons I claim Gonzaga. I grew up with them. I'm a type 1 diabetic. Adam Morrison was. One of the reasons I don't rally behind USF, the athletic department as a whole, they've always been really bad about hiding stuff, sweeping stuff under the rug. And that's at a mid-major. So I am not shocked at all that Florida is doing the same thing to a degree. that's what I'll leave it at. It's not fair for me to speculate because I'm not in those rooms. I'm not in those conversations. I don't have access to the transcripts, the supposed photos, his phone, all that stuff. It does suck though that it's so nonchalant that they're just basically acting like it doesn't exist. I think that you go, hey, look, man, administrative leave. We'll pay you all that stuff until we can prove otherwise. But I mean, he came out to their game, and I'm pretty sure the crowd was like applauding. The crowd was like applauding
Well,
him.
look what
I'm
they
not
did. Look what they did with Brandon Miller. I mean, that was
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'll leave it at that. I
well.
hope it's not true.
You know what?
but-
You know what? It's going to be fun. I would love to be sitting behind the Florida bench when they go on the road.
Oh man, yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah.
He may want to take administrative leave after that first road game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't have much more to add. I've been in
Well,
awkward.
I want to ask you a
conversations.
question though, because you always, before any of this came up, you always questioned how he got the Florida job. Did you not?
Yeah. I did not believe he put together a resume. One March Madness appearance, losing in the first round, albeit it was a great game against Murray State that year, does not, in my opinion, make you an SEC caliber coach. I've never been a Golden guy. I think he is a good coach. I think he's a good basketball coach. I'm not saying he can't coach at that level. He's had some success in Florida. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been god awful. Oh my God, what's going on? He hasn't been Kyle Neptune. He hasn't been Jared Haas. But I have always been kind of critical, and I think it's the general landscape of athletics in college is everyone wants the next wonder kid, right? Everyone wants the next Sean McVay in football. Everybody wants the next, young, bright, up and coming coach. And this was supposedly the guy. And I really don't think he's done much at Florida to warrant. I don't think he's done enough at Florida to warrant being protected and coddled. It's not like he's some legendary 30-year tenured coach with multiple national champions. He's not Donovan. He's not Donovan who won back-to-back national titles and, put that program to the absolute pinnacle of college basketball for a period there. So I can talk about it all day. It boils down to this. I get it. He's innocent until proven guilty. It sucks that this is the discourse we're talking about. We have a top 25 AP team. I'm not super high on them as a basketball team. I think they're good, not great.
I don't know if they're going to finish the year in the top 20.
Yeah, that's why I put them as kind of a team that I think might be a little bit of a pretender. It just sucks that we have a team that does have talent. Walter Clayton's playing good ball right now, and we're talking about their coach being a fucking creep, which sucks. So I kind of hope it gets resolved and comes out and we can move on. The thing that's going to get really interesting is if this comes out and it's true, what do? SEC schools don't have the best track record of taking...
No. SEC schools have the worst track record of dealing with this type of stuff.
But we'll see.
Here's the interesting side note on this story. You've always said, how did Golden get that job? Well, one of the reasons why Golden got that job is because he's a Bruce Pearl underling. All right.
Yes.
Bruce Pearl loves this guy. All right. And the funny part of it was I was reading a quote when he got hired from Bruce Pearl. Now, I don't remember the quote. I sent it to the group chat, but it basically said he had, impeccable character and a beautiful family. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's what when you take Bruce Pearl, who is a known liar and cheater. Google it, folks, if you don't believe me. A known liar and cheater. All right. And he gives you a ringing endorsement. You might want to think twice about whether there's any truth to that ringing endorsement. Gentlemen, Joey, Josh, you have anything to add?
I'll say one thing. It's a shame because I really do like this Florida team. I think they're a great team. Walter Clayton's great. Elijah Martin's been phenomenal. It's just, I just feel like recently we've been having these problems, just I think in sports as a whole, and seeing this type of this coming out and multiple cases of this sort of scenario. It's just I don't see a scenario where this man is innocent. And the fact that this guy he's still on the court, minding his own business, not really elaborating, even just acknowledging the fact of what's happening
Yeah.
outside of basketball, it's pretty shameful on the Florida athletic program. And well, once things come out, and more stuff comes to fruition, I think it's going to be it's going to be a real pain in the ass for the Florida athletic program and just how things are going to be handled, because it's not heading in the right direction.
Well, Alabama probably set the precedence, because Alabama, they swept everything under the rug. They ignored it as much as possible. They stonewalled the press.
Yeah.
They basically they and their fans tried to intimidate anybody in the press who didn't want to toe the line. And so this is what happens when you allow, a murder to take place and nothing really happens to the program. And so now I'm not going to judge, crimes, but you're right. It does look like he's guilty. And that's why I'm saying, why isn't he at least on leave?
Sure.
And that's what I don't get, because, it would be one if one person says it, because you might think, well, maybe that person has a vendetta, but two people saying the same things, then it gets a little more complicated. And
the SEC has such a. I mean, again, I think
going back years, before all of you guys were born, the SEC's had a bad track record for this stuff.
I mean, you have the Alabama situation, Georgia. I'm pretty sure at this point you can't be like getting recruited to Georgia on their football team. You have to have at least 3 DUIs for them to even look at you at this point. Like it's getting egregious. So, like I said, it's hard in what we do, people like I totally get it. Like being in an athletic department, like I understand there's nuances and you've got to cover yourself, because if the thing that sucks about it is he could be all of this stuff, but if you make one misstep, now not only does he get out of it, but now he countersues you. And it's just, I understand that there's so much maneuvering that goes on. I do agree with Josh. It doesn't look good. It doesn't like I'm not going to, like, I'm 100% like not on the guy's side, but it just sucks that it's going to go this way, because if you make one mistake, a guy like this can wheels away out of it legally and all that stuff. And next thing you know, nothing happens. And, it's like I said, it's a shame. The guys that I really feel bad for are the players, because now the players are going to go on the road. They're trying to play basketball, and they're going to be playing games, and then people are going to be on the bench going, your coach is a creep, you're down with it. And it's going to range from kind of heckling to like actually people going, by association, you are also a bad person because you are defending this guy. And that sucks. I mean, you got 19-year-old kids who might be chasing an NBA dream, or just, trying to get an education and play ball. And it's weirdo who, doesn't deserve. So those are the guys who I do feel bad. And obviously family and the victims, but like it sucks.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. So before we move on to our predictions for the season, we're going to roll an interview I just did the other day with Georgia Tech senior guard Javian McCollum. Our special guest today is Georgia Tech senior guard Javian McCollum. Last season at Oklahoma, Javian ranked in the top 20 of the Big 12 for both points and assists per game, and he led the conference in free throw percentage. Through 4 games this season, he is averaging 14.8 points, 4 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 1.5 steals per game, with excellent shooting splits of 49, 40, and 87. Javian, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I am doing good. I'm glad we could finally hook up.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, have you forgiven Bay for blowing that alley-oop dunk in the first half against Georgia?
Yeah, I left that in the first half.
and was it misplaced anger at Bay? Was that the reason you were picking on poor Tyron Lawrence?
Yeah. I had to pick on him.
Better be careful. You'll become known as the Hunter Dickinson of the ACC. So, in all seriousness, that game was pretty chippy. Was that about the rivalry, or was there more to it?
I mean, you always know rivalry games are high with emotion. Both teams were out there to compete, and a foul happened, and emotions flared.
Right. Did Coach was he angry about the technical, or?
I mean, I feel like we're sticking up for our teammate. When our teammates was fouled aggressively, it didn't have to go to that, and we just stuck up for our teammate.
Right, right. So before we talk more about the team and this season, I wanted to talk a little bit about your journey. You're born in Florida, went to high school at Fort Myers, but your college career began in New York at Siena. And of course, you were on my radar almost immediately because you got off to a quick start as a freshman, and the Metro Atlantic is up in my neck of the woods. So you were there for 2 years, OU for 1 year, and now at Georgia Tech. So could you take me through that journey a little bit and how it all played out?
I mean, starting in high school, I really didn't have any offers coming out. My senior year, Sienna had called. The assistant coach called me. Let's say he called me today, and then the next day the head coach called me and they offered. And then I want to say like a couple weeks later, I committed there. And then once I got on campus, they showed me a lot of love, and coach trusted me as a freshman. I mean, from the first practice, it started out great. I had great teammates. My freshman year, I think I did good, and then towards the middle to the end of my freshman year, I started starting, and you could see flares and sparks of what I could do. And then going into my sophomore year, I had a huge year, averaging 16. Went to the Orlando tournament, put on a show there, and then that's when my name really started popping and people started recognizing me. And then throughout that season, I just kept hooping, and then that's what led me to hit the portal. And then once I hit the portal, it came down to Oklahoma, Nebraska, and USF, and then I obviously chose Oklahoma because of the coaching staff and what they offer and what they wanted me to come in and do for the team. And I went there. Throughout the year, I had some ups and downs, but I mean, I faced a lot of adversity there, which made me the player I am today. And then obviously I hit the portal again, and now I'm here at G-Tech with a great coaching staff and a great team.
Um, what adversity, if you don't mind explaining, because I wasn't aware that there were any issues in Oklahoma, and you had a solid season.
I mean, I mean, there's ups and downs during the season. The season is never, there's highs and lows. Just having some games where it wasn't clicking for me. I had to face that, but also we're going on, I think we went on like a 8-game losing streak. So it was tough then. So I would say facing adversity in that way.
Okay. And then what was it that made you leave OU to come to Tech?
Just looking for something new, looking for a coach like Dame that's been to the NBA, that has NBA experience, and just being able to learn from him and soak everything in just to prepare me to get ready for that next level.
Okay, that makes sense. Last year the Yellow Jackets had wins over Duke, UNC, Clemson, arguably the three best teams in the ACC, but in between those games there were a lot of losses. In the offseason, there was a fair amount of turnover, actually a lot of turnover. But three of your 4 players in minutes played returned. You, Luke O'Brien, and a nice freshman class were added to the mix. And Lance Terry, recovered from his injury, and he's back this year. With all that said, you're off to a 2-2 start, and the schedule is really starting to pick up. So what is Coach saying has to improve?
Man, attention to detail, I think that's huge for us. The games that we have lost, I believe that the teams that we're playing, they're not doing anything spectacular to make us, have these turnovers. I believe that everything that's happening right now is under our control. We just gotta, like Coach said, look at the details and pay attention to the scout. And as long as we do that, we'll be fine.
Okay. Please bear with me for this one because it's kind of long-winded. But when I was preparing for our ACC preview show, I figured that shooting might be an issue for the team. And I thought the missing piece might be a big wing or a forward who could stretch the floor. However, I'm a little surprised that you guys aren't doing better on defense. But it's obvious the team is young. 4 of the 8 top players in minutes played are either freshmen or sophomores. So your team definitely has more upside than most. So as the season progresses, and maybe by the time you get into conference play, how much different do you think the team might look? And in what ways might it look different?
I mean, I think it'll look very different. I mean, we're still a team just trying to gel, I believe. It'll look different in ways on offense. We'll know where each other like their spots. We'll know where the shooters are going to be. We'll know how Bai likes it in the pocket. I mean, we're still trying to figure out each other. And even on a defensive end, just communicating at a high level and just be ready to guard.
All right. And would you say basically that the youth has been, the youth and just not being familiar with one another has been one of the parts of your growing pains so far?
I mean, yes, in a way, but I mean, the guys here are great. Everyone's willing to listen. Everyone's willing to buy into the system. So, I mean, as long as we're willing to do that as a team and get better, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Okay. So let's talk about you specifically for a sec. First of all, one thing I thought was pretty amazing when you transitioned from Siena to OU, your numbers didn't really change a huge amount. You still, and that's to me is really impressive. What did you attribute that to? I mean, usually when a player goes up a level like that, there's a drop off, but you really didn't have that drop off.
I mean, just always stay in the gym, continue to be the player I am, and just making the right play and doing whatever the team needs me to do to win. I mean, that's the end goal. The end goal of this sport is to get wins and make the fans happy. And, when you get wins, everyone's happy. So,
right. What was your biggest adjustment going up a level?
I want to say the physicality. I mean, as you know, those guys are bigger. The ball screens, you got to get over those big guys, 7-footers. I mean, I think that was the biggest difference. And then just the attention to detail. I mean, at Oklahoma, there was a lot of attention to detail. We're always in the film room and just trying to get better every day.
Right. So you're known for being a great shot creator and a playmaker. And I believe that's why Tech recruited you. Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in fact, last season on jumpers off the dribble and pick and roll handling, you ranked above the 81st percentile for both for points per possession.
Mm-hmm.
So having said all that, are there other ways you think you could excel this season, your last season, to make the team better?
Yeah, I mean, just being a catch and shoot guy, you got Nate George. He's a great PG. I mean, he's always looking for his teammates. So just being able to pick and choose when to take those catch and shoots just to make it easier on me instead of just having to always take it off the dribble. I mean, that just makes the game easier, taking the pull-ups, working on the floater. I mean, just having multiple ways to score.
Okay. How is the team approaching your next game versus a Cincinnati team that is very athletic and difficult to score on? Are you focusing? Because you've had a decent break in between games. Are you focusing on them, or are you focusing on just doing what you want to do better?
I mean, the main thing is we have to figure out what we got to do better. We got to stop turning over the ball, unnecessary turnovers, and then also just attention to detail of what they want to do on the court, watching film, studying the players. I mean, everything comes into play.
Okay. When you transferred from OU, did you know they were on the schedule?
No, I did not. I didn't.
It's also your first road game of the season.
Yeah, it's first road game. I mean, it's gonna be an exciting one.
What kind of reception do you think you're gonna get?
Hey, who knows? I'm just ready to go in and get the win.
Are you feeling a little anxious about that?
I mean, it's exciting for sure. Just going back to Norman and just being in that gym, it's exciting.
Right. So where do you think the team has to finish in the ACC standings to make the NCAA tournament?
I would say we have to finish at top 4 for sure.
Oh yeah?
Top 4.
I don't think you have to finish that high. I think top 5. I
would like to finish top 4.
Well, okay. All right. I think top 5 definitely in, and it might go as deep as 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Lastly, you were a communications major, and obviously You're very articulate. So, 15 years from now, what do you think you're going to be doing when your basketball career, playing career is over?
Hopefully, I'll retire with a lot of money so I don't have to do anything else. Hey,
I hear
right?
you. I hear you, brother. I would be on the golf course
Hey,
every day.
telling you, spending time with the family.
Yep, yep. I hear you. All right. I love that answer.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I want to thank you, Javian, for being on the show. I wish
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wish you and the team the best, and maybe you'll come back if you have time when you're preparing for the draft. Maybe
Sure.
you could check in with us and let us know how you're progressing there. When you're going to workouts and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, Javian, have a good season.
All right. Thank you.
All right, that was a good interview with Javian. Georgia Tech is not off to the greatest start, but they have a chance to turn it around against Cincinnati. What a tough way to turn things around. I mean, Georgia Tech's 2-2, so season's far from over. But I'm just saying, I could easily see them be 2-3 because Cincinnati is just a beast. So typically before the season, we do our college fearless forecast. So, but our preseason previews kind of ran late this year. Something we got to work on next year. They certainly are detailed. So if you haven't listened, you can still get a lot of information in depth about mid-majors. We did our first 2 episodes on mid-majors. Then we basically did a conference at a time from the conferences we thought would get more than one bid, conferences like the West Coast Conference, the Atlantic 10, the American, all the way up to the big guys like the Big 12 and stuff like that. But anyway, so we're going to do our fearless forecast 2 weeks in. Most teams have played, well, some have only played 3, like Rutgers. Some have played as many as 6, which is kind of crazy, but yeah. All right. So the way we did our voting for all Americans, we had picked 8 in total. You were allowed to pick for your starting team. You had to pick 2 bigs, 3 guards, and then for your reserves, you could pick any position. All right. So I'll just kind of run down, and I won't go over everybody's picks in detail. Who picked was everyone on the show, plus Cam, our Tennessee graduate and our NBA expert. Also Caleb, who we haven't seen in quite some time, but he's more of a college guy. And the only person who didn't pick was Jake. And yeah, not sure why we didn't get Jake's picks. But anyway, all right. So how do these differ? Well, everybody here picked Hunter Dickinson and Ryan Kalkbrenner for their bigs, their starting bigs. Cam picked Ryan Kalkbrenner and Igor Milicic, Tennessee power forward, who we're pretty high on. Drew and I talked about him in our SEC preview. And then Caleb also had Kalkbrenner, but he took Janiah Broome. So I think Milicic, Tennessee really hasn't played anybody yet. I don't know if Milicic is really standing out. I think Cam's making a little bit of a homer pick there. But other than that, Kalkbrenner's had that 49-point effort. He's been playing well. Dickinson's been playing well. Yeah. So guards. All right. I'm just looking through here. I see Cam Jones on every ballot but Cam's. I see Mark Sears on 4 of the 6 ballots. So 5 of the 6 ballots. So some of the differentials was Joey had Josh Hubbard. Josh had Dylan Harper. I had Braden Smith and Trey Johnson. Drew had Ryan Nebhard. Cam had RJ Davis, great pick, and VJ Edgecombe, another kind of Trey Johnson. They're kind of going to be competing there for freshman of the year, probably all year. And Caleb also had Dylan Harper. So anyone want to make a comments here about their picks? I think we covered Braden Smith pretty well. So and Trey Johnson, we talked about them both. Anybody want to make a comment about their picks?
I'll just say something real quick. Josh Hubbard. I was watching this dude last year as a freshman, and he was playing Antonio Reeves, um, Reed Shepherd, Dillingham, that whole Kentucky team, and he just took them on solo, hit three after three, made that way too close of a game as it should be. Now in his sophomore year, he's putting up 21 a game, shooting 60% from three. He and Mississippi State, I think, are going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have a lot of-
I like that pick a lot, Joey. That's like a good that's like one I guess Igor Milicic is solid, but like Josh Hubbard could easily be on this list because that's going to be that dude's a one man offense.
But did you guys notice, he really wasn't on the show until the end of last year, and now his career just suddenly takes off as a sophomore. No one thinks that's a coincidence.
We have a pretty good track record with that, Rich.
No coincidence there. Josh Hubbard's career has just taken off since he's been on the Hoops Prospects.
We got
podcast.
a good track record with that, man. We had Shireman before he got big at Creighton, and now look at him. NBA draft pick.
All right. Do you have any comments about Nebhard?
How much? I mean, what is there to say? I think the guy's an absolute stud. I mentioned in the comment earlier. I think those are my three favorite guards. I think Cam Jones is like kind of that perfect combo. Sears is just, again, offense unto himself. And I don't even think he's really had those like big explosive games yet. He's just getting going now. And I think Gonzaga's going to contend for the number one spot. And I think it's going to be because Ryan Nembhard is going to go out there and be probably the most efficient passer. And the offense will come when it comes. Like, he had 19 at San Diego State. It's not going to be asked of him, but I don't know if you guys have watched them, but go watch some of the passes this dude is making. It's actually, they are insanely high level. He's hitting slips. He's throwing no-look passes from half court. I love me some Nemby, man.
We weren't saying this time last year.
I think what people forget, and we saw what that team is, that team was all guys. It was either all guys in completely new roles or completely new guys, whether it was freshmen or transfers. And now he's got mastery of an offense. Him and Ike might be one of the top 3 or 4 1-2 punches in terms of just like the mental game that they're on and the pick and roll, finding him in the post. So, I think Nembhard's going to make some noise up there. But you can't really go wrong with any of these dudes.
Right. So in terms of the reserves, it looks like Janiah Broome and Cooper Flagg were the two most popular picks. Joey voted for that. Josh voted for that duo. I voted for that duo. Drew had Janiah Broome. Cam had Cooper Flagg. And Caleb had Cooper Flagg. Some of the variations was Dylan Harper made Joey's reserves. Ace Bailey made Josh's reserves. I had Sears as a reserve as opposed to a starter. Caravan made Alex Caravan from UConn made Drew's reserves, and along with Trey Johnson. Ace Bailey and Caravan were on Cam's team, and Caravan and Igor Milicic of Tennessee made Caleb's reserve. So, man, we had a lot of consistency in voting. I mean, we may have not had them all in the same starting spots but just the core pretty much like we had like 6 guys that were pretty core here.
I think we got to come back and do it. We didn't do this before. I think we should do it, given the scale of college basketball this year, where, again, it seems like there's so many guys bundled and the freshmen are showing up. I would love to do like a redo, like midpoint. And then obviously we do our end of the year where we give out our end of the year awards. Because, like, to me, Caravan's on here because, A, he's been playing great basketball. They've played probably the worst schedule of any good team in the country. But, like, to me, if UConn wants any chance of being even close to what they've been, that guy has to be one of the 8 best players in the country. Like, that's why I put him there. It's like if he is the 15th best player in the country, that team's not going anywhere near as far as they want to. He has to be a top 8 guy for them. That's one of the reasons I put him there. I left Cooper Flagg off. Maybe I just wanted to be different. I was between him and Trey Johnson, but just from what I've seen, Trey Johnson looks off the hook. Flagg's great too, though. He was probably my first guy off. If we had a 4th reserve, it would have been Flagg for me.
Actually, my last guy was, even though I don't have it listed this way, my last guy on with Sears, because I'm a little worried about the way that the scoring and the assists are being spread out on that team because of Phelan, the freshman point guard. He looks really good, and he's taken up some of that scoring slack from the outside and some of the playmaking. So I'm worried that Sears might not have a statistically dominant year as he had last year. So one note I want to tell you mentioned our end of the year awards. They do get noticed. When talking to North Carolina's SID and asking for RJ Davis to be on the show, which I've been told will happen this year. But he said to me, should I tell him that he wasn't on your All-American team? People do notice.
He was close. He was close.
He was honorable mention. He was
an honorable mention guy. He was like the first guard off, I think.
So, all right. So individual awards. We picked player of the year, defensive player of the year, freshman of the year, and coach of the year. And I thought we'd have a little more disagreement, but Ryan Kalkbrenner is the winner here, getting 3 of, wait, I'm chopped off here. Yeah, getting 3 votes, which was 1 more than Cooper Flagg. And one more than Cooper Flagg. So, and Hunter Dickinson received the other. In terms of defensive player of the year, Janiah Broome edges out, getting 4 of the 6 votes, with Kalkbrenner getting the other 2. In terms of freshman of the year, we have Dylan Harper for Joey, Cooper Flagg for Josh, Trey Johnson for me, Trey Johnson for Drew, Cooper Flagg for Kim, and Cooper Flagg for Caleb. So Cooper Flagg wins it, but barely over Trey Johnson. And then coach of the year. Oh my God. You guys hate me, don't you? Oh my God, I'm choking on this, literally. Bruce Pearl, my favorite person in the world, ties Mark Pope for coach of the year, getting 2 votes apiece. Kelvin Sampson got 1, and Nate Oates got 1. Any comments here beside the fact
I put Pearl because they have looked awesome to start this year. They've looked awesome. They have a good win. Like they have looked really good. And Rich, when we did our SEC, we thought that they were going to be like just a tier, just like that tier below. Like they're not, and they've looked super dynamic. Janiah Broome looks like a player of the year, like a legit player of the year contender. So this could totally change, but they have arguably.
I think we both thought that there was the 4 best teams, and then they were the 5th. You know, I think
I remember saying like Janiah Broome has to be the player of the year for them to break into that. And while he's looked like that, all these other guys are coming along for the ride outside of the brawl on the plane. Everything sounds like it's, they're out there.
Which basically happened right around the same time the Golden news came out, ironically.
Yeah. So that's why I have him there. Like all the other teams, Mark Pope was my runner-up because I think he is coaching beautiful offense there. And like we said with Kentucky, to take a team that doesn't have a dude, a bunch of kind of pieces, and like is making and playing the way they're playing, he was my number 2. But if Auburn continues to be in that top 5 conversation all year, Janiah Broome is going to legitimately challenge for player of the year, and Bruce Pearl is going to, in my opinion, have to challenge for coach of the year because I just didn't think the roster was that good. And for them to have arguably the best win of the season so far, to go and win and beat Houston, that carries weight for me as it stands. Coach of the year to me is always the most fluid though, because they could go lose 3 games in a row and one of those games being a game they're not supposed to lose, and then he's like completely out of the running. But that's where my logic was at.
All right. I get it. You're right. Kentucky and Auburn have a bunch of guys. Auburn has Janiah Broome. Kentucky doesn't even have that. But I think Kentucky's supporting cast is kind of like as a whole. I mean, you can see there's a handful of guys there that have like pro NBA potential, actually, like Kobe Brea and the kid from BYU, 6th man of the year last year in the
Jackson Robinson.
Jackson Robinson. So all these guys, they have some NBA flavor to them. When you look at Auburn, I don't know if you can say that about many guys besides Broome. So yeah, I get it. Joey, Josh, you have any comments about our picks here?
I mean, I think Drew said it best for, coach of the year. I think as of right now, I think Auburn looks unstoppable. I'm looking right now and it's like the top 5 guys are all scoring in double figures. Janai Brooms looked unstoppable right now. He's looked like he's getting whatever he wants, averaging 20 and 11. And it's they're looking like the best team in college basketball currently. And, they're killing teams as well. And that win against Houston, that was a good game. And, it was gonna be a defensive game, I always thought. And, I think Houston's gonna be a great team as well. I think they're gonna be a top team in the Big 12. And they'll definitely make some noise in the tournament. But just right now, from what I was watching that game, they just looked unreal. So, and you'll see later on in my predictions about Auburn. So, but coach of the year, I think Bruce Pearl looks like the guy right now.
Josh dislikes me.
I know you're not too fond of Mr. Pearl, Coach Pearl.
All right, so now we're going to do our team predictions. And we have Final Four, a champion, a runner-up, and then we have 2 sleeper picks that are currently not in the top 25. All right, so I probably just easier to read these and to try to compare because I don't know what order anybody put them in, but Joey went with Alabama, Kansas, Houston, Baylor. Josh went with UConn, Baylor, Gonzaga, Auburn. I went with Alabama, Kansas, Kentucky, Gonzaga. Drew went with Alabama, Gonzaga, Houston, Kansas. Cam went with Tennessee. There's a shocker. Duke, Kentucky, and UConn. Oh, and Caleb went with Duke. There's a shocker. Duke, UConn, Kentucky, and the Zags. So who do we have for our national championship? Our champion, is there a consensus? We don't have one similar pick. 6 of us all picked somebody different. How do you like that? Joey went with Alabama. Josh went with Auburn. I went with Kansas. Drew went with the Zags. Cam went with Tennessee. And Caleb went with Duke. Wow. So no sense the runner-up. That's not so much important. That's really interesting. Here's another interesting thing. No Iowa State in here. Who else are we missing that's pretty darn good? Iowa State, I guess, the first team I was thinking came into my mind.
Are you talking about in our Final Four?
Oh, no Indiana? No Indiana
No,
here.
no Indiana.
And I think they have I think they have Final Four potential.
I agree too.
No Purdue or North Carolina. But Purdue's
North
not much
Carolina.
a surprise for us.
Yeah, North Carolina, they have Final Four potential. Yeah.
And no Creighton surprised me.
Yeah, Creighton.
Creighton's always
yeah. All right, interesting. Very interesting. Maybe Jake can break the tie because we're going to end up putting all this on in an article. We'll sum it up. So if Jake makes his picks, then maybe he'll break the tie for us. All right, so sleepers. Now, again, these are teams that are not in the top 25 that we think could make a run to the Final Four. Not necessarily our picks, obviously, but we think they have that potential. Joey went with Michigan State and Ohio State. I thought about Michigan State, but then I thought better of it. Josh went with BYU and Texas Tech. I went with BYU and UCLA. Drew went with BYU and Ohio State. Cam went with BYU and Georgia. Now that is a bold prediction. Very young team, talented team, and they were on our surprise team list. We didn't talk about that team, but Georgia had 2 good recruiting classes in a row. They look really good against Georgia Tech. But I just think inexperience, first of all, I don't even know if they're going to get to the tournament, let alone, get, to the Final Four. And Caleb went with BYU and Xavier. So BYU's a popular sleeper pick here. Any comments?
Yeah, I didn't pick BYU solely just because everyone else did. It didn't seem like the fun pick. I want to take Mississippi State, but I talked about them a little bit. I will get to them, my predictions. Michigan State, they're one of those teams. They're not like they may finish 8th or 9th or whatever in the regular season, but they're going to pop off once they get to the tournament. And then Ohio State, I had to. I think they have some upside if they can get in the tournament. I think they can make some moves.
All right. So now we have a category called One Crazy Prediction, and it's a specific prediction. Doesn't necessarily have to be crazy, but it's kind of crazy in the sense you'd be that specific. So Joey said Josh Hubbard will lead the SEC in scoring and take Mississippi State to at least the Sweet 16. Bold, but I don't think it's crazy, but it's bold. All right. Josh says St. John's beat UConn's championship Big East tournament again. Yeah, that's very conceivable. All right. Cam, I know had an idea here, but he didn't put it in writing. So, and maybe he texted it to me. I'll look before we leave. Now, are you ready for a specific? I'll give you a specific crazy prediction. Mine reads as follows. On February 5th, Villanova will lose at DePaul and the court will be stormed. The following day, new Nova athletic director Eric Rodell, who's just hired today, will fire head coach Kyle Neptune mid-season. Now, you think about that. You might say that's crazy. But if they lost to DePaul, which is, I don't know if you guys remember, but in the Big East tournament last year, Villanova almost lost to that historically bad DePaul team.
Yep.
And this DePaul team looks worse than last year. I mean, this Villanova team looks worse than last year, and DePaul definitely looks better than they were last year. So it's not out of the realm to see DePaul beating Villanova at home. And then if the court would be stormed, the embarrassment that's going to be felt at Villanova, I think might just push them over the edge. All right. Drew's got a gamble here. So what Drew says is Ryan Nebhard will break the single season record for total assists at Gonzaga or in NCAA.
All NCAA. I believe it's 274. He had 243 last year. So he broke Gonzaga's program record last year.
Okay.
And I thought, given how rough of a start he had through that first 10 game stretch.
Yeah.
It said 243, it's 274. So he's about 30-ish away. And he's already got 40.
Yeah.
Let's make some history.
Wow. I thought for sure Josh would have put Bruce Pearl wins Coach of the Year and Rich jumps off a roof of a building. So let me check my phone to see if Cam texts me his, because I suspected Cam would give us a doozy.
Yeah. Have you guys met Cam?
Not yet.
I love Cam.
No.
Cam's my guy. And Cam knows his basketball, particularly his NBA, really well. But Cam rides for Tennessee. He might be predicting a perfect record from Tennessee, and they win the national championship by 70. It's on deck.
He actually didn't text me, but again, if we get any of these before we get the article up, we'll throw them in. So, because I'm sure Cam has a good one. All right, folks. One thing, I know it's been a long show, but I just want to throw this in before I forget. And I just want to, last year, and I think actually for a couple of years, we've been saying, how the hell does this happen in these power rankings, Sagarin and so forth? So if you go to Sports Reference power rankings right now, and we're 4 games in, and you look at what they have out there right now, this explains why certain, because every year we have Mike DeCourcy from Fox, who's their bracketologist. And every year I'll be like, how's the Mountain West get 5 teams in? How's the Mountain West get 6 teams in? Why are they so high in the computer rankings? And I have nothing against the Mountain West. I love the Mountain West, but this is what I don't get. If you go on to Sports Reference, which is similar to KenPom, all right, very similar. Right now, Boise State is 8th in their rankings. They've lost to USF. and everybody above them, except for Houston, who lost to a good team in Auburn. So Auburn, they have 2, Houston at 3. They have Boise at 8. But wait, it gets better. They have San Francisco, who beat Boise at 13. So go figure that one. 4 games in, you think San Francisco would be considered the better team. But then they have Utah State, who's been pummeling people, but pummeling nobody, at 17. And they have Nevada, who's been beating people, nobody, pretty much, at 20. And they have San Diego State at 21. So all these Mountain West teams are really high already, and they haven't done anything. They don't have any big wins. So if you know anything about computer programming, this all builds on itself. And so basically the Mountain West, based on this, is going to be up there high. If they're high now without beating anybody, they're definitely, if they beat anybody, they're going to be really high. I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
Polls will never make sense.
It's not a poll. It's not a poll. It's a computer program. That's the thing.
But like all of these will never they'll never make sense, because in my opinion, like I said, I have no issue with UConn coming into that. But how are they number 2 and the best team they've played is someone that I'm pretty sure I could roll my grandma out against, and they haven't moved and dropped. Like, to me, who you play matters. That means more. Like, I would put Auburn in front of you. Like, if I was doing polls, Auburn's ahead of UConn until further notice.
Kansas is 5-0 and has 2 wins against 2 quality teams, Michigan State and North Carolina. Guess where they are in these power rankings? Kansas State's beaten North Carolina and Michigan State, undefeated. They are 23.
Yeah.
And Boise State's 8th. Now, here's the thing. When you put these in, when you set up a system like this, I know because I've built them, because I'm a former computer programmer, you have to give the computer some idea what it's dealing with to start with. The other way to do it is put everybody equal, but that doesn't work. It won't work. So you have to make some assumptions that North Carolina, for example, is going to be better than Belmont. All right. Now, how much better is dependent on your system. But what I'm saying is the Mountain West, they had the Mountain West really high last year. And so somehow they're incorporating what they had last year into this year. And so the same problems are going to exist that existed last year are going to exist this year. And we always talk about this with the Mountain West. They always are high in the computer rankings, and then they rarely do anything in NCAA tournament. I swear to God, I'm going to build a system. I used to build. I had one for college basketball years ago. It obviously would have to be much more sophisticated than it was. But I'm going to build my own because these rankings stink. I tell you. All right, so we got to get going. I got to call Bruce Pearl. So.
It was nice meeting you guys, man. Thank you guys for being with me.
All right. Well, before you go, I want to say, as always, I want to thank our listeners, and I want to thank our special guest, Javian McCollum, for joining us. You ever miss an episode, you can get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. Next week, we'll be back with a new college notebook and new weekly features and a new special guest, and I'll be reporting from the Legends Classic this week, Texas, Syracuse, Texas Tech, and St. Joe's. A lot of pro prospects there, including Trey Johnson, who leads who's the top of the billboard. Any final thoughts, guys?
I'm just ready for Feast Week, man. Give me the Maui. Inject it straight into my veins.
I love Maui.
Yeah, I love it. They're gonna have what, 4 teams? I think they have 4 teams in the top 10 at the Maui this year. It's Iowa State, UConn. I know Michigan State's not top 10, but they're there. The Maui's loaded this year. Battle for Atlantic is gonna be really good too. Indiana, Arizona, State can figure it out. Gonzaga,
Louisville.
Louisville's in.
Yeah,
Atlantis
Louisville's not chump change anymore. Yeah,
Louisville's at Atlantis. Yeah, I'm super pumped. And the best part is we have no games starting on Monday, so I get a week to do nothing but sit on my couch and watch college basketball. I just got to catch up. I've only seen a handful of games, most of the West Coast ones, because when I get home, all the late games are just tipping off.
Nice.
So,
all right, gentlemen, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.